What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty. Join my Discord if you want to chat and share your thoughts, the link is in the description. 2SK Chapter 26 The Second Shadow, Pirate Empress no intention of lingering. After Moria appears, Momoshage, the admiral candidate, immediately boarded the ship with his men and left. The atmosphere of tension between the two parties suddenly dissipated. The conflict between the two is somewhat anticlimactic. Thunder, little rain. Lord William, seeing that Marine was not entangled, he just left. Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu and others all looked at William. Adjust the course and continue to Guy Island, William said nonchalantly. And Moria just showed up, also came to his side. Yes, one zombie soldier got the order. 3, 3, 5, 5, it started to get busy. Lord William. Brook came to William. He pointed at Moria, and then at William's shadow, full of doubts. Your shadow. Let the shadow escape from itself and transform into Moria. Logically speaking, there should be no shadows under the feet of William, a user with the shadow fruit ability. But there was clearly a shadow under William's feet just now. It's just a false shadow, it's easy for me. The corners of William's mouth rose. As he said that, in the astonished eyes of Perona, Hogba Gu, Brook and others, the shadow under his feet disappeared, as expected of Lord William. Still a long way to go, William was not complacent. The ability of the shadow fruit is by no means limited to this. There is definitely not just one shadow that a person with this ability can control. I have been trying to develop the ability of the shadow fruit in depth. Try to see if you can generate a second, third, or even more shadows to fight. But it hasn't been successful yet. It can only be done when the shadow mage breaks away from himself and disguises himself as another target. Creates a false shadow to confuse enemies, but William was not in a hurry. This is already a big improvement. I believe that if you give him some more time, he may not be unable to succeed. He might even be able to use his own soul to create the highest level homits, just like Big Mom with the ability of the Paramecia soul fruit. Let your shadow truly split, build into the strongest zombie. Advertisement, huh, I thought we were going to fight. At the same time, on the warship slowly leaving. Looking at the exaggeratedly large and terrifying ship that was drifting away. Marines, who were a little nervous and didn't dare to be careless at all, breathed a sigh of relief. After all, what we have to face is the 7 warlords of the sea, which can stand on par with naval headquarters and even compete with the big pirates in New World, rather than some minor characters. Guion Vice Admiral, Hina thought you would really take action. Hina looked at the leader, Momoshage. I'm not that messy yet. Momoshage shrugged. She stared in the direction of the terrifying ship and whispered softly, however, the young vice captain recruited by Moria is not simple. No matter how powerful he is, he can't be compared to you, the admiral candidate, right? Thinking back to that young and handsome figure, Hina was noncommittal. She admitted that the other party was extraordinary and worthy of being the vice captain of the Hell Pirates. But Hina knows better how powerful this marine flower, known as the sexy bomb, really is. He is the leading swordsman in naval headquarters, and his strength is unfathomable. A little-known young swordsman. It's not worthy of the other party's attention. No, I don't just mean strength. Momoshage shook his head and said bluntly. In addition to the fearless fighting spirit, I saw in his eyes a burning ambition. You mean? Hina blinked and was a little stunned. He is definitely not a guy who wants to be subordinate to others. Maybe Moria will shoot himself in the foot. Momoshage said nonchalantly as he stared at the terrifying ship that was getting further and further away. Just watch, now, located on the first half of the Grand Line, adjacent to the edge of South Blue's calm belt. Some calm seas are filled with bursts of smoke and the smell of blood. A dilapidated pirate ship, full of traces of battle. Above, there are petrified statues, surprisingly. They all looked ugly, there was no movement, and on the opposite side. It is an ancient pirate ship that looks like a movable palace and is pulled by 2 giant sea snakes. Above, the flag of the 9 Snakes Pirates hangs impressively, fluttering in the wind. A group of female warriors dressed coolly and powerful. They are constantly transporting the cargo on the pirate ship. These are their trophies. Lady Snake Princess's charm is indeed unmatched by anyone. With just a few moves, these men will all be easily petrified. Advertisement: a female warrior was sighing there. Of course, no one can ignore my sister's beauty. A fat and strong female warrior with long orange hair crossed her arms and said proudly. Sister, I have gained a lot just after this expedition. And on the side, an ugly-looking female warrior with an exaggeratedly large head, long green hair, said to the graceful figure in front of her. Our luck is really good. Really, the beautiful figure nodded gently. She has long black hair that falls to her waist. The tall and beautiful Empress wore a red cheongsam, which perfectly outlined her perfect figure. Next to him, there is a large red and white python hovering, adding a bit of indescribable wild beauty. The whole person is invisibly exuding unimaginable temptation. It makes people fascinated, can't bear to look away. Lan, are you collecting newspapers again? He noticed a female soldier who just passed by, holding a large stack of newspapers. Sandersonia, who was following Boa Hancock, couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. There is no way, this is the task given by Granny Nu. The young female warrior with short hair and a good figure said helplessly, our Nine Snakes Island is in the calm belt. The newsbirds don't pass there, and the news is blocked. So Granny Nu wants me to do it every time I go on an expedition. Bring back as many outside newspapers as possible. Fortunately, these pirates have the habit of subscribing to newspapers, so this saves a lot of trouble. Are these newspapers expired? Marigold glanced. I noticed that the date above seemed to be 2 months ago. Granny Nu said, even the expired ones. Lan said with a smile there. She glanced at the expired newspaper at the top and sighed, but it's really incredible. More than 2 months ago, a big incident seemed to have happened in the world government. The Enies lobby, which is said to have never been breached in 800 years, was caused a huge commotion by a traitor named Obask William. Oh, hear the words. The two sisters Sandersonia and Marigold couldn't help but shrink their pupils. Obask William? It was Empress, Boa Hancock, who was about to return to the cabin. Suddenly she turned her head. What did you say? Who? Obask William. I heard that he was a member of Cypher Pol CB9 directly under the world government. For some reason, he suddenly killed his boss, caused a scene in Enies lobby, and then defected. Lan was a little surprised to see Lady Snake, who had never cared about the outside world, reacting so strongly. However, he still pulled out the somewhat worn newspaper. He gestured to Boa Hancock and others. Here, you are surprisingly young. I heard that you are only 17 years old, and the world government has offered a bounty of 200 million belly. On the front page, a young and handsome figure, with blood-stained hands and cold eyes, he stood proudly in the damaged building. There were corpses of government personnel and marines lying around. It's him, Chapter 27, the Three Gorgon Sisters and the Golden Emperor. It's really him, in the antique cabin. I couldn't wait to open the tattered newspaper. She stared at the young figure on the front page. Boa Hancock's beautiful face was no longer the arrogance and indifference of the Pirate Queen, in the past, but full of excitement. Although he has changed a lot, it should be him, not only her, but also Sandersonia and Marigold. Everyone was shocked and couldn't calm down. Our benefactor, Marigold's voice trembled. I didn't expect that he would betray the world government. Sandersonia couldn't believe it. It's really something he would do to make a scene in Enies lobby alone. Boa Hancock tightly grasped the newspaper. Trying her best to calm down her inner fluctuations, she said in a deep voice. After all, 8 years ago, when he was only 9 years old, he dared to disobey the order of the world government in Sabodi Archipelago, risking his life to kill other government officials present and let us go. Such a daring act is not something that ordinary people can do. She stared at the young and handsome figure. She couldn't calm down, and her past memories gradually came to her mind. 12 years ago, the three sisters were kidnapped from the ship of the Nine Snakes pirates by the slave group, and were bought from the slave auction by celestial dragons and became slaves. 4 years later, the fishman hero Fisher Tiger climbed up the Red Line alone, took advantage of the lax guards in Marijoy, set fire everywhere, and rescued countless slaves. She was only 16 years old, and she and her two sisters were also released and fled to Sabodi Archipelago. At that time, although she was only 9 years old, she was sent out to perform tasks at a young age because of her outstanding performance in daily life, responsible for capturing those escaped slaves. When the three sisters were blocked by several CP agents and looked desperate, that inconspicuous boy among the CP agents actually took action at this time. With a strength that was completely inconsistent with his age. He killed the other agents present cleanly and neatly. Advertisement let them go. The weak cannot survive in this cruel world. Since you have finally gotten rid of your slave status, cherish the hard-won freedom and work hard to become stronger. My name is Obask William. I hope you will become stronger when we meet again next time. Thoughts returned. Looking at the young figure in the newspaper. Boa Hancock sighed there. I really want to see him again. Indeed. The two sisters Sandersonia and Marigold also smiled and said, Tisk tisk, the boy in the past has grown into a handsome guy. Looking at the unbelievably handsome boy in the photo. The corners of his moist lips slightly raised, and Hancock nodded in approval. It's very handsome. Woohoo. Splash, in the unknown sea. The terrifying ship is moving forward in the wind and waves. The weather on the Grand Line changes at any time. The sun was shining brightly the moment before, and the wind was howling and the rain was pouring in the blink of an eye. Drip drip drip. In the gorgeous castle, William looked at the heavy rain outside the window. Thinking of his experience in the past period, he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. But he didn't know that the news that he killed his boss, made a scene in Enies lobby, and rebelled against the world government attracted the attention of Boa Hancock, the Pirate Queen. The gold mine of the Kingdom of Karos was stolen. Looking at the report on the newspaper about a kingdom with rich gold reserves that disappeared overnight. Advertisement. William's eyes flashed. Golden Emperor. Don't let me down. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Being able to completely mine a large gold mine in such a short time and turn it into a worthless waste mine. In all likelihood, it was the ability of the Paramecia gold fruit. See Circle Calendar 1507. He had just turned 9 years old, but he had already mastered 6 physical skills, including paper arts, finger pistol, moonwalk, and shaving. His extremely high talent attracted the attention of the higher-ups, and he was trained as a key person. He was often arranged to leave CP's training base, Guanhao Island, to perform missions and fight. Back then, the fishman hero Fisher Tiger risked the world's condemnation, climbed to the top of the Red Line with his bare hands, set fire to the Holy Land Marijoy, and let a large number of slaves go. He was sent to the Saboti archipelago to capture the escaped slaves. At that time, William and several CP agents blocked the escaped Hancock sisters. But of course, he didn't let them go out of kindness. Not only did he know the other party's potential and background and wanted to make a good relationship, but also because his innate observation haki had already sensed that there was a very amazing breath approaching. Judging that it was most likely Pluton Rayleigh who was hiding there. He killed several other CP agents present without hesitation and let them go. And Guild Tesoro, who was also among the escaped slaves at the time. William had already been eyeing him, and secretly subdued him. He also gave him the 6-style training method. 5 years ago, he arranged for Guild Tesoro, who had been tempered for several years and was already strong, to create chaos at the Saboti archipelago auction house and snatch the Paramecia golden fruit that the Don Quixote family used to attract customers but was not prepared to sell. However, Guild Tesoro, who had power and thought he could control his destiny. Obviously, his ambitions gradually expanded, and he was no longer as humble as before, and was willing to be inferior to others. Due to William's special status, it was not convenient for him to show up often. The two had been out of touch for a long time. You can't wait to break free from your chains before your wings are even hard enough? Haha. Chapter 28 William vs Shadow Mage. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, another week has passed. On the undulating sea, the huge and terrifying ship kept moving forward. On that vast training ground, bang, bang, two identical figures were fighting fiercely there. Tempest kicked chaos. William's eyes were sharp. His body was like lightning and he kicked out violently. Whoosh, whoosh. Shocking light green slashes appeared out of thin air. Paper arts flash. Opposite him, the Shadow Mage, whose appearance had changed just like William's and was completely unrecognizable, moved in the wind at an incredibly weird angle, like an extremely thin piece of paper. He dodged the incoming slashes one by one. Next moment, it snapped. Fly finger pistol, one after another, thin invisible air blades came through the air. But William narrowly dodged it, shave, almost at the same time. The two figures stamped their feet and rushed out. His fists and feet became as black as ink and wrapped around armament haki. Crazy punches and kicks. Bang, 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 for a while. The shadows of fists and legs are dazzling. The two are constantly colliding there, extremely fierce. Not giving in to each other. Woo-hoo-hoo, amazing energy. The ground cracked and gravel flew. The undulating sea surface seemed to become more turbulent. Oh ho ho ho, even the clone is so powerful in combat. A clearing in the distance. There was only a handful of bones left, and Brooke, who was practicing swordsmanship there, sighed with emotion. You are indeed Lord William. Huh, of course, Lord William is a man destined to become the Pirate King. Perona, who had just finished her morning exercise around the Ship of Terror, was sweating profusely and shook off the sweat, saying with pride. As he spoke, he untied the extremely heavy lead bags on his hands and legs, as well as the exaggerated weight-bearing clothes on his body. He sat down. The whole person felt relaxed instantly. Take the juice from the zombie soldier. Squint your crescent eyes and enjoy it happily. Advertisement, huh, I can't hold on any longer. Dr. Hogba Gu was weak and lay there in a large shape. He was sweating profusely and breathing heavily. These days, William has forced him to continuously strengthen his training. He had gradually adapted to it, but not long ago William started to increase the amount of money again. Running with a heavy load is undoubtedly a huge challenge for the fat house like Hogba Gu. But as time goes by, putting aside the fruitability, the two people could only be regarded as fighting against the five scum, but the gap between them has gradually become apparent. Perona is young and energetic, with greater potential, but she was too lazy and neglected to exercise in the past. Under William's high-pressure training, the progress is not unpleasant. Whether it is physical fitness or physical skills, he has begun to lag behind Dr. Hogba Gu, the ship's doctor. Just like now, with the morning training task assigned by William completed, Perona still has some energy left. But Dr. Hobakugu was almost exhausted, his physical strength was almost exhausted. Retractable and retractable, snake, at this time. With William's true form, he gave the Shadow Mage a hard blow and retreated. Suddenly punching wildly, and, what's surprising is, its fist continuously extended and turned freely like a lion majesty. From all the tricky angles, they madly bombarded William in front. Whoosh, whoosh, the sound of breaking through the air continued. The air was densely packed with dark fist shadows. It seemed to be entangled with the quite strong armament haki, mercilessly. It was dazzling and overwhelming. Swish, swish. However, William seemed to be able to predict the future. With the innate observation haki, his body was like a small boat in the waves, swinging at an incredible angle and speed like a residual image. He narrowly avoided the punches that kept coming. The next moment, in the astonished eyes of Perona, Brooke, Hagabagu and others, William's fists wrapped with haki, also swung out. What? Perona screamed, and Brook and Hagabagu also lost their voices. Because William's fists, like the shadow clone in front of him, were like rubber and also stretched strangely. The fists of the two kept colliding with each other. Boom. Boom. The roar continued. Advertisement. The two figures kept colliding. A large amount of smoke and dust flew and gravel splashed. It was a little hard to see clearly. Partial enlargement, giant pistol. At this moment, almost at the same time, two identical figures shouted at the same time. The fists swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into huge fist prints. Like a giant's fist, the two hit hard, bang. There was a loud noise. The whole island ship shook violently. The training ground reinforced with cement under the feet of the two was directly torn and collapsed mercilessly. Large pieces of gravel, accompanied by amazing airwaves, kept sweeping away. The big trees were pressed to the east and west. On the sea, the waves were surging. It was shocking. William and his shadow clone stood there at the same time. They stopped and did not continue the confrontation. Lord William, have you been able to control the second shadow? Perona's spirit floated over. Blinking his big eyes, full of curiosity. Just now, this lord used the ability of Shadow Revolution to change his shadow and affect his body when Shadow Master left his body. He even enlarged his fist to the size of a giant's fist. He faced each other head-on. Swish! The shadow clone, which was no different from a real person, changed. It turned into a dark shadow at a speed visible to the naked eye and returned to the feet of the body. It's still a little short. William hugged his arms and shrugged, saying, it's just that when the Shadow Master's shadow clone is separated, the ability of Shadow Fruit can be used normally. It will take some time to generate a second shadow clone that can move freely. These days, he has been working hard to develop the ability of Shadow Fruit. He can already use other abilities of Shadow Fruit normally when Shadow Clone of Shadow Master leaves his body without being affected. But it's still a little short of truly creating a shadow clone like the second Shadow Master. Because Shadow Master is not an ordinary clone, although it can be completely dominated and controlled by himself, strictly speaking, it has a certain self-awareness like those deprived shadows. Therefore, it can exert a combat power infinitely close to the original body. Of course, Shadow Clone is not completely flawless. When it and the original body are both engaged in battle, it is equivalent to 1+1. The consumption of its own physical strength is not ordinary. Ordinary people really can't hold on for long. Chapter 29 Guy Island, Sky Island? Lord William. Guy Island has arrived. I do not know how long it has been. While William, Perona, Brook, Hobaku and other cadres were enjoying breakfast, feasting and consuming delicious food, a zombie soldier hurried over and reported there. Oh, spit out a bone. William stood up and chuckled. Is it finally here? Next moment, he looked sharply. All the muscles in his body were tense, and he activated the return of life. Brush. Because a large amount of food was eliminated, the slightly bulging belly shook slightly, and instantly became as flat as usual. Vaguely visible. On the sea ahead, an island grew larger and larger, clearly visible. That is, it's an island ship, Gulu. This is too big. Now, on Guy Island, there are a large number of pirate ships docked on the coast. Groups of fierce-looking pirates gathered there. Noticing the huge thing coming slowly on the sea, they all couldn't help but be a little shocked. They have obviously never seen such a big ship. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. Sir William, this island is a lawless zone that is not under the jurisdiction of the world government. A large number of pirates gather all year round. He didn't bother to wipe the greasy mouth. Dr. Hogbagu was full of excitement and danced a little. Now I don't have to worry about materials. He's clearly done his homework. Learn about the situation on Guy Island. This town called Magic Valley Town is basically a chaotic pirate town. Well, apart from some aborigines, there are indeed many pirates. Advertisement. William nodded with satisfaction. If we sew their shadows together, it should be almost enough to resurrect the remaining zombie generals. He is not a good person. He doesn't care whether these pirates have offended him or not. There is no psychological burden at all on using the shadows of these pirates to create a zombie army. However, in order to prevent accidents to the created zombies, it is too troublesome to imprison so many pirates in the dungeon at once. Still have to filter. It is better to be deficient than excessive. It would be great if I could get the ability of Paramecia Book Fruit, or Paramecia Childlike Fruit. William touched his chin and said secretly. The book fruit can lock the target into the book world, and maintain the locked state for a long time, without hunger or aging. There is no need to waste food, and there is no need to worry about them escaping. Directly save a lot of manpower and material resources. As for the childlike fruit, you can turn these guys into toys after stripping them of their shadows, and make a contract to make them work for you day and night. Even if his shadow is taken away, he cannot appear in the sun. It can also allow these tool people to work for themselves in the dark underground. Implanting their shadows into corpses can also create an undead zombie army. It has to be said that if the childlike fruit matches the ability of the shadow fruit, to be true is to bring the value of captive to the ultimate level. Capitalists are not that bad. I glanced at the white clouds and the blue sky. He directly ordered, Then, I'll leave this place to you. Some smelly fish and rotten shrimps. The strongest pirate on this island is estimated to have a bounty of no more than 50 million belly. There is no need for him to take action personally. Hey, Sir William, let me ask you a question. Brooke asked curiously. Is it just for these guys that you came here specifically? Based on what he knew about William these days, this was unlikely to be the other party's purpose. If you just want the shadows of those powerful pirates. Even if we don't go to New World, wouldn't it be better to go directly to Sabaody Archipelago? There, as the transfer station for the first half of the Grand Line, there is bound to be a large number of powerful pirates gathered there. With William's own strength alone, it doesn't take much effort to deal with the new pirates who haven't been to the New World yet. Especially, with the privileges of 7 warlords of the sea, Marine will probably not interfere. Advertisement, of course not, they just happened by the way. William chuckled. He pointed to the sky above. My goal is up there. Above? Looking at the sky. Hoba Gugu on the side thought of something. He opened his mouth wide and looked at William in disbelief, full of excitement. Sir William, is the legend of the Golden Land true? They had followed Gekko Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea, and had been in the first half of the Grand Line for so long. Naturally, they had heard the legend about the Golden Land. The legendary Golden Land? Brooke was full of astonishment and said there. Back then, our Lumba pirates also thought about searching, but in the end we gave up. Lord William, could it be that the Golden Land is up there? Perona stared blankly at the sky above with her big round eyes, somewhat unbelievable. How is this possible? It's hard to say whether the Golden Country is up there. William shrugged and said nonchalantly, but Sky Island does exist. I'll go up and investigate first. You guys wait for me here and get rid of the pirates in the town. If everything goes well, I will take you up there to open your eyes and see the legendary Sky Island. A man of great skill is bold. He is not worried about the threat of the god Enel. At least, with the ability of Paramisha Shadow Fruit. If he wanted to leave, few people in this sea could stop him. What's more, although Thunderfruit's ability is indeed very powerful. But William didn't feel that Enel, who was arrogant and settled in a corner and could only rely on his fruitful abilities to dominate Sky Island, could threaten him. This is confidence in one's own strength. Moreover, he was not without other preparations. Yes, hear the words. The 3 Peronas were all excited. Although they were a little shocked, they certainly had no doubts about William's words. You know, this gentleman is an elite member of Cypher POLCP9, which is directly under the world government. It is not surprising that he knows some unknown secrets. For a moment, I was full of longing for the legendary Sky Island. Chapter 30 Instant Shadow? Surprised Enel? Woohoo! On the terrifying ship, the devil-like shadow wings suddenly opened. Then, this place is up to you, under the gaze of Perona, Brooke, Hagabaku and others. William flapped his wings and rushed to the sky. Advertisement. Suddenly, William seemed to feel something. The sharp observation Haki realized that there was someone watching him on Guy Island, which was still far away and the naked eye could not easily see the human figure. Sniper? Interesting. William raised his eyebrows and smiled. He didn't care and disappeared from the sight of Perona, Brooke, Hagabaku and others at an astonishing speed. 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters, 5,000 meters. Dark clouds. Endless. Shadow line. William's eyes were stern. His right hand was like a pistol, pointing at the sea of clouds above. Swoosh, a dark shadow line pierced through like lightning. Connected to his finger, it sank straight into the cloud. Swish. Swish. If at this moment, there was someone at the other end of the cloud, he would be shocked to find that a thin invisible black line suddenly ran from bottom to top, penetrating the extremely thick sea of clouds. Extending from the sea surface the next moment. Instant shadow. William's eyes were stern. The whole person disappeared in an instant. In an instant, he strangely crossed the thick sea of clouds and appeared at the other end of the shadow line. Standing on the White Sea 7,000 meters above Qinghai. Well, is this the White Sea? Looking around, it was all white sea of clouds, waves, everywhere. William was a little emotional. The sea of clouds in the sky is like a miracle. Although it was expected, but when he saw it with his own eyes, it was still a little shocking. Advertisement had made people sigh at the magic of this world. Instant shadow. This is one of the abilities of the shadow fruit he has developed these days. In fact, the principle is very simple. Using the power of the fruit, he can easily create fine and tough shadow lines that are almost invisible to the naked eye. Not only can it be used to attack the target, but it can also be used as a medium to allow the shadow mage to instantly shuttle to any level on the line when he touches the shadow line. And he can directly exchange positions with the shadow mage at any time and anywhere. In an extremely short time, after these 2 steps, he can achieve the teleportation effect of freely shuttle within the entire shadow line. It sounds troublesome, but for William, it only takes a moment to operate. His nerve reaction ability is far superior to that of ordinary people. He can do this easily. Woo-hoo-hoo. Looking at the white sea in the sky, William did not prepare to break into Sky Island from the gate of heaven. Instead, he flapped his wings directly and soon rushed under the vast sea of clouds. He did the same again. Swoosh, a fine shadow line. It penetrated through the white sea again. Swish. The next moment, William activated instant shadow again. He followed the shadow line and exchanged positions with the shadow mage who had already traveled to the end of the shadow line in the first time, crossed the thick sea of clouds, and appeared on the white sea. Woohoo! The dark devil's wings fluttered gently. William soared into the air and did not fall into the white sea below. And in front of him, an island with ancient trees, lush vegetation, and clouds and mist was clearly visible. Is this the part of Gaia Island that was rushed up to 10,000 meters from Shanghai by a giant sea current and appeared on Sky Island? William exclaimed. It's incredible. When I really saw Sky Island, it was completely different from the picture I imagined. That kind of unparalleled visual impact cannot be described in words. Let alone just those plants. In the unique climate environment of Sky Island, they have already undergone changes over the long years, and they are many times larger than the species that should be of the same origin under Qinghai. Without further delay, William flapped his wings directly. He turned into a black stream of light and rushed to the island. Advertisement at this time. On the island of gods, Arpayato. In the center of the island, in a rather gorgeous palace. In the hall, a young man with his upper body naked was lazily lying on a soft couch. Next to him, two maids were holding large cattail leaves and gently fanning him. What was surprising was that he had unusually long earlobes. Moreover, he not only wore a headscarf, but also had 4 tomo drums inlaid on his back. His face was slightly sinister and arrogant. Enel suddenly felt something and raised his eyebrows. It seems that a bug broke in. He grabbed a red apple and took a bite casually. He said indifferently, Shira, Gedosh, sadly, the 4 of you go and entertain them. I will obey the oracle. 4 priests of different shapes walked out. Kneeling on one knee, he bowed respectfully, not daring to be disrespectful. Hey, is there fun again? I'm just bored. I hope he can last longer in my swamp trial. As the 4 god-tier officials under the seat of God Enel, they are full of confidence in their own strength. They don't think anyone can threaten them at all. Forget it, it doesn't seem to be an ordinary bug. But before these priests are ready to leave, Enel sat up and showed a playful smile. Grabbed the golden scepter next to him. Let this god play with it himself. I haven't stretched my muscles for a long time. Lord Enel, it's just a bug, you don't need to go out in person, right? Just leave it to us. The 4 god-tier officials were surprised. You are no match, Enel said lightly, the next moment. The 4 god-tier officials suddenly shook all over. What? Their faces changed drastically, and they moved together. They actually raised their weapons and rushed out violently. They all rushed towards Enel in front of them. This sudden scene made the maid next to her pale and scream. Boom. Chapter 31. Puppet Shadow, Arrogant Enel. Boom boom. Inside the magnificent palace, flames billowed, smoke and dust flew. In the blink of an eye, a sharp spear pierced his chest and his head was beheaded by a sharp cloud sword. But Enel was completely unharmed. Advertisement, hiss, hiss, hiss. The wound that should have been bleeding. Not only did not a single drop of blood splash out, but it was intertwined with strands of electric light. Interesting. Looking at the 4 god-tier officials who suddenly betrayed, Enel was full of surprise, but also with disdain and sarcasm. He seemed to feel something. He moved to one side, as if he had dodged something. At the same time, he also noticed that there were black lines that were so thin that they were almost invisible to the naked eye if he didn't pay attention. Connecting those priests. Shadows. The next moment. He frowned slightly. I felt as if my body was imprisoned. Hiss. In an instant, it turned into a ball of lightning and disappeared on the spot. Appeared a few meters away. Lord Enel, it's not me. We can't control ourselves at all. Shira, and other priests were horrified and angry. But no matter how hard they tried to struggle, they still couldn't control themselves. Turned around and continued to kill Enel. I know. Enel's face was calm, but he didn't mean to hold back at all. He stomped his feet. 5 million volts, discharge. Hiss, hiss, chirp. In an instant, amazing electric light. It kept surging out from his body. In an instant. The 4 god-tier officials, along with the 2 pale-faced maids who were frightened and at a loss, were all hit directly by the current that kept raging from the ground, and screamed miserably. They were charred all over and fell trembling. Advertisement. Swish. Swish. Lord Enel, damn it, what happened? I'm so sorry, God, please forgive my sins, I can't control myself. At this time, a large number of people rushed over one after another. They were all members of the God's Guard who were waiting outside. But each of them had a struggle and fear on their faces, holding their weapons and killing Enel together. Endless. 30 million volts Thunderbird, Enel frowned. The golden cane in his hand directly hit the Magatama drum behind him. Hiss, hiss, chirp. All of a sudden, the Magatama drum flashed with lightning. The dazzling thunder turned into a huge Thunderbird, flapping its wings and flying out. The members of the God's Guard who rushed up were all burned black by the electricity and screamed miserably. They fell there without knowing whether they were alive or dead. The whole palace became a mess. But in a moment. Regardless of the 4 god-tier officers who had fallen, or the members of the God's Guard who had lost most of their life force, they began to move tremblingly. One after another, they stood up strangely. They looked at him eagerly, as if they would rush up again at any time. Can they be controlled even after they're dead? Enel's eyes condensed, somewhat doubtful. He never thought that even if these people were stunned or even died, they still couldn't get rid of the control. They were still controlled. Hiss! A flash of lightning. He appeared directly outside the palace, standing on a floating large ball cloud. Thunderfruit, it is worthy of being one of the top abilities in the sea. Outside the palace, above a towering tree, William stood proudly with a dark shadow wing on his back. On his hand, a large number of dark shadow lines were intertwined between his 5 fingers, extending from all directions to the palace in front. It seems that the puppet shadow line is indeed unable to control such a Logia ability user. Puppet shadow line. It is one of the shadow fruit abilities developed by William with his open mind and imagination, borrowing from the moves of string fruit. It is similar to the parasite string of string fruit that can control the actions of others. But it does not need to touch the target's body, only the target's shadow, and it can easily control the target's actions by manipulating the target's shadow. But obviously, for Logia ability users who can directly elementalize themselves, such tricks have limited effect. A person with special abilities from Shanghai? Advertisement. Looking directly at William's figure, Enel laughed in anger. Yahahaha, I have to say, you really d me off. Inazuma. All of a sudden, his right wrist suddenly turned into dazzling lightning. Locked William in front of him, sweeped out, sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The amazing lightning column came ruthlessly, but William seemed to have predicted it long ago and was not panicked at all. Swish. In a flash of lightning, he stomped his feet hard. His body moved sideways at an incredible speed. He narrowly avoided the amazing lightning. Boom boom. In a blink of an eye, the towering trees wailed. They were broken and destroyed continuously. A large amount of smoke and dust was raised. It made people's scalps numb. You can actually dodge my attack, you are quite strong. Enel raised his eyebrows. Although a little surprised, he was not panicked at all. Instead, he looked very interested. Hiss. The next moment, a flash of lightning. He turned into lightning and appeared in front of William, looking down at him. Such strength is much stronger than those trash. Enel looked relaxed, full of arrogance and pride. Yahahaha, Shanghai bug, I'll give you a chance. Follow me and become my servant, I forgive your previous offense. It seemed that he was not threatening, but granting. He thought it was an honor for him to follow him. Oh, William looked directly at the arrogant Enel, his face full of playfulness. This sentence is exactly what I want to say to you, Enel. Yahahaha. Enel heard the words. He couldn't help but laugh in anger, his eyes became cold. That's a pity. Humble and ignorant blasphemer, repent in despair and fear. The shining golden cane directly hit the Magatama drum behind him, 30 million volts thunder. However, before he finished speaking, William suddenly moved, shave. He stepped hard, his figure was like lightning. In an instant, he appeared in front of him as if he had teleported. What? Enel's pupils shrank sharply, and he couldn't believe it. But he was too careless, and before he could attack, a dark fist mark wrapped with hockey had already hit his abdomen. Bang. Unimaginable pain came. Wow. Enel's eyes bulged and he vomited blood. With a distorted face and disbelief, the whole person flew out like a cannonball. William kept his fist swinging, his face calm. Who is so humble and ignorant? Big ears. Chapter 32 Shadow Cage. William who doesn't talk about martial arts. Bang. Bang. Smoke and dust billowed. One after another, towering trees were knocked down and broken. Enel was covered in blood and was embedded in the ruins. The embarrassment reached the extreme. Advertisement. Wah wah. There was a flash of electricity, his entire being flashed out. Ahem. He staggered a little and blood started to flow from the corner of his mouth. William stared straight ahead, his distorted face showing complex emotions such as shock, unwillingness, anger, and fear, with disbelief. Impossible, my ability should be invincible, why can you hurt me? Is it sea stone? No, in the opponent's hands. There is no sea stone. Just now, his mental network, which was born from Sky Island's mental network and the ability of Logia Thunderfruit, could barely predict William's movements. On top of that, he thinks his elementalization is invincible. The other party cannot hurt his own entity at all. Therefore, there is nothing to fear. Unexpectedly, he was hit hard all of a sudden. This made him a little unbelievable, at a loss. Thunderfruit is indeed one of the top abilities in the world. William looked directly at Enel, who was in a state of embarrassment and no longer as high-spirited as before, and said calmly, "It's a pity that you are too weak and far from being able to exert its true power." You guy. When Enel heard this, his eyes were filled with fire. He, who has always been arrogant, was naturally a little angry when he was belittled by William in this way. You are so complacent, I was just careless just now. Staring at William fiercely, there was a fierce murderous intent in his eyes. He was furious and yelled, "You're just a bug from Shanghai, I won't give you any chance again." The words have not yet finished. His entire body turned directly into electrons. Suddenly he appeared in the air about 10 meters away from William. Boom! The golden cane in his hand suddenly struck the Magatama drum behind him. 60 million volts Brontosaurus, wah wah gg, all of a sudden. Lightning flashes. Roar! A lifelike thunder dragon roared out with its fangs and claws. At an astonishing speed, he pounced on William fiercely. Shadow shield. However, William never dodges. He raised his right hand directly, and the black shadow surged like fluid. In an instant, it turned into a huge black shield and stood firmly in front of him. Wah wah. Advertisement: the electric light shines. The black shield is safe and sound, but the menacing and extremely ferocious thunder dragon actually collapsed. The intact black shield shrank back like a fluid and flew to William's feet. Turned back into an ordinary shadow. What, this scene? Enel's eyes widened and he was a little surprised. He never expected that his invincible move would be blocked by someone. How is it possible? Is this what you are capable of? Staring at the strange shadow, Enel felt a little confused. Although he was on Sky Island, he, as a user with the ability of Logia Thunder Fruit, still had some understanding of the general types of Devil Fruit. But this kind of ability is really weird, beyond his imagination. Paramecia Shadow Fruit. This is my ability, William said nonchalantly. Immediately afterwards, his raised right hand spread its fingers. I saw countless shadow lines intertwining and surging in the palm of his hand. Shadow Cage. In Enel's shocked eyes. Swipe. Swipe. Massive black lines flew out of William's palm. Thousands of them, rushing in all directions without any rules. Huh? Enel's expression changed. Relying on Xinwang's prediction, he retreated violently. The shadow lines that shot out one after another were narrowly avoided. But the golden scepter in his hand was cut off by the tough and extremely sharp black thread. It's frightening. Shueisha. Look around. In the blink of an eye, countless thin black lines directly penetrated countless trees, rocks, buildings. All over the entire island, which was dazzling. Even the thick mountain was penetrated by ruthless sharp black lines. The entire island has become a dragnet, criss-crossed and densely packed. Makes your scalp numb. Want to block my movement? It looked full of weirdness and blocked the shadow line of the entire island. With vigilance, Enel gently scratched the inaudible black line with his right hand. The sharp shadow line easily cut his fingers. A series of arcs were brought about. The sharpness is shocking. It's useless. My body is like thunder. Enel, who was unscathed, felt relieved. As long as these weird black lines can't hurt his body. There's nothing to be afraid of. Advertisement? Yeah? William chuckled. Shadow Cage. This is one of the moves developed on the basis of Shadow Line by borrowing the ability of String Fruit. Somewhat similar to Heavenly Yaksha, Doflamingo's birdcage. Of course, although these shadow lines are tough, they're not indestructible. After all, William is only a Shadow Fruit user, not a String Fruit user. If it is not reinforced with hockey, it will not pose a direct threat to the truly strong and can be easily torn or destroyed. However, the purpose of Shadow Cage is not just to surround enemies, but to better cooperate with the ability of Instant Shadow. This allows him, as an ability user, to freely move around the battlefield. Take the initiative. In Qinghai, there are many people with Logia abilities like you, Flash, Flame, Magma, Ice and Snow, Storm. William crossed his arms and said bluntly, there are many people who are stronger than you, don't be too arrogant. Recognize reality, Enel. It's just Paramecia, stop making such nonsense. Enel was outraged. Realizing that the powerful enemy in front of him has mastered some unknown method, it can really hurt his own entity. No matter how conceited he was, he no longer had any reservations. Wah wah gg, the electric light is dazzling, it's impossible to look straight at. For a moment, Enel's whole body was gushing with intense electric light. His figure expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. 20 million volts, Thor, a large amount of thunder and lightning materialized. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a bloated thunder giant with shining lightning. It was indescribably shocking, relying on Logia's elementalization capabilities. Enel, who transformed into the god of thunder and had full combat power, ignored the obstacles of those shadow lines. Rush out. Go to hell, Qinghai bug. Like an angry-eyed King Kong, his whole body was shining with intense electric light. Enel was roaring with astonishing aura and murderous intent. Palms intertwined with terrifying lightning, it hit hard. Snapshot. William looked calm. In an instant, he suddenly disappeared from where he was. What? Enel's pupils shrank sharply, his hair stood up, and he was shocked. A strong mental network predicts crises in an instant. But there was no time to turn around. Boom, a sharp kick. It hit him on the head mercilessly. Ah, an unimaginable pain came from the back of his head. Enel's consciousness fell directly into darkness. Chapter 33 Enel, the Sandia clan who was defeated. You fell down before I even exerted any force. A large amount of electric light gradually dissipated. He looked at Enel who began to shrink, a big bump on the back of his head, and fainted. William, who landed firmly, shrugged. In fact, there are many ways to solve Enel. In the final analysis, Enel relies too much on Thunderfruit's ability, and his physical skills are really poor. Although he can already use voltages up to 200 million volts, Enel is obviously still very unfamiliar with the control of the Thor form. Otherwise, rely on the power of the heart network. It stands to reason that it would not be impossible to react. In particular, William's shadow fruit ability, TNK Enel. After all, even a materialized shadow is non-conductive and more insulating than rubber. William didn't even need to use Shadow Cage with such fanfare just now. With his strength, even if he doesn't use the fruit ability, as long as Enel doesn't want to escape, he can easily crush the opponent. It's just that he was happy to see Hunter and wanted to use Enel, a rookie Lobia user, to verify the new abilities he had developed. It just took a little effort. Shueisha, in the blink of an eye. The dense shadow lines shrink and return at a speed visible to the naked eye. The dragnet that crisscrossed the entire island disappeared. Oh, feeling something? William raised his eyebrows. A slight smile appeared. Are you coming so soon? The shadow line on the hand that originally shrank and returned surged. Released again. Hateful, how is this going? Damn it, is it Enel's fault? Our bodies are out of control? And this time, the coast of Apayado, the island of gods. Advertisement one after another, figures dressed like aboriginal tribesmen, holding guns and other weapons, gathered there in groups of 3 to 5. Surprisingly, they all have small white wings on their backs. However, what is very strange is that each of them is full of panic and their steps are trembling. It's like being forcibly controlled, trying to struggle. But he couldn't resist. Involuntarily, he walked towards the center of the island. Eventually, they came to the ruins of the palace and met William himself. And there was Enel lying there, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. What? Looking at Enel lying there, these Sandia warriors were originally a little panicked and desperate. Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes and lost their voices in disbelief. That guy Enel was defeated. Isn't a guy's ability invincible? Gulu. Who is he? A soldier of the Shandia guerrillas. He stared blankly at Enel, who was lying there, not knowing whether he was alive or dead, and William, who was too young. Shocked. Who are you? The young warrior at the head was tall and strong, with a fierce face. He was holding a shield and a spear, and was carrying an incendiary cannon. He was staring nervously at the figure in front of him. Full of vigilance, and even more uncertain, they originally wanted to risk their lives and fight to the island of gods, Apayado, to defeat Enel and his men, and to regain their homeland. Unexpectedly, when I rushed over, I found that my body was suddenly under control, involuntarily. Being manipulated like a puppet on strings, after arriving here. It turned out that their enemy, Enel, had been defeated without knowing it. Is this the Sandia clan? William crossed his legs. Sitting on a boulder. Advertisement looking at these Sandia warriors, his fingers moved slightly. Swiss. Countless fine shadow lines shrank and returned. These warriors of the Shandia clan regained their freedom one after another. Back to normal. We can take action. This guy, he is just like that Enel. Is he some kind of demon fruit power? Be careful, don't be careless. Each one was surprised and happy as if they were surviving a disaster. But at the same time, we are still vigilant and do not dare to be careless. As if facing a formidable enemy, they looked at the young figure in front of them who gave them unlimited pressure. Don't be so nervous, I'm not your enemy. William looked relaxed and chuckled. I'm from Shanghai. Apart from the gold, I don't have much interest in this island. If you want it, I'll give it to you. What? A warrior named Shandia clan heard this. They all couldn't help but feel shocked, a little excited, and a little unbelievable. It has been 300 or 400 years, and this can be said to be the closest they have ever been to regaining their homeland. For a moment, he looked at the leader of the guerrilla leader, Wappa, at a loss. Although the other party is young, he is just 17 years old. But he is the descendant of the great warrior Calgera whom the Sandia clan has believed in and worshipped for generations. He inherited the fighting talent of his ancestors and became the strongest warrior among them at a young age. As the captain of the Sandia clan guerrillas, he is responsible for leading them to fight and regain their homeland that has been lost for hundreds of years. You really won't compete with us for Apayado? Frowning. His eyes were fixed on William. Although Wappa is young and impulsive, he is no fool. Naturally, it is clear that the enemy who can defeat God Enel is definitely more powerful than imagined. It would be best if the two sides don't have to become enemies. I said, except for gold, I am not interested in this island. William said nonchalantly, however, Enel cannot be handed over to you, I want to take him to Qinghai. But it didn't take long for these warriors of the Shandia clan to show their joy. He suddenly changed the subject. Of course, I can't give it to you in vain. Chapter 34 The Deal. Wappa's Allegiance. Let me introduce myself. My name is Obask William, from Qinghai. In ruins. William crossed his arms. Looking at these nervous Sandia warriors who were facing a formidable enemy, they talked eloquently. I know something about the past of your Sandia clan. For hundreds of years, you have been fighting relentlessly to regain your homeland, and you have sacrificed countless blood and tears. You can take away all the gold on this island. Wappa frowned. Realize that the enemy is powerful. Look at the other party's unscathed appearance. 9 times out of 10, Enel will be easily eliminated by the other party. Just now, so many of them were easily controlled without even realizing it. Obviously, this mysterious Qinghai powerhouse is far from what he and others can defeat. There is no free lunch in the world, and he is not so naive that the other party can really reason with him and others. All the Sandia clan wants is to return to their homeland, ring the legendary golden bell that has disappeared for hundreds of years, and fulfill the last wish of the great warrior Calgera. As for the gold, even if it is lost, it is not unacceptable to them. As for the rest, looking directly at William, Wappa said in a deep voice, "I'm sorry, I'm afraid our Shandia clan has nothing to give you." It's not that he doesn't want to give something, but the Shandia clan is very poor. They have been fighting endless battles with the residents of Angel Island for many years. Their living space has been continuously squeezed, and the people's livelihood is difficult. I think I really have nothing to exchange with the other party. No, although there is nothing worthy of my respect in the Shandia clan, you are an exception. William shook his head and pointed at Wappa himself. He still admired this warrior of the Sandia clan. He is a real tough guy with an unyielding will of steel. And the advantage is that he is young and has great potential. Worth cultivating. Wappa was stunned. Even the warriors of the Sandia clan were a little stunned. I never expected that the other party would say that. Advertisement. You are a good warrior. How about following me to Qinghai and serving for me? William stood up. Looking at the somewhat surprised Wappa, he smiled and said, "In exchange, not only can I return this island to you, so that you, the Sandia clan, can fulfill your centuries-old wish and return to your homeland, I can also help you get rid of the enemies on Angel Island." What? Hear the words. It's not just Wappa himself. The other Sandia warriors couldn't help but shrink their eyes and looked at William in disbelief. Wappa. One after another, the guerrilla fighters looked at Wappa, somewhat at a loss. I never expected that the opponent's target turned out to be the descendants of the great warrior Calgera. Want Wappa to work for him? You don't naively think that, without Enel's restriction, the natives of Angel Island will watch you Sandia clan occupy a Payado, right? William came to Wappa and others. There is no need to worry about whether these Sandia warriors will suddenly attack him. I know that you are brave and good at fighting and have a strong will. In order to regain your homeland, you are willing to risk your lives and are not afraid of any danger. But even if you can defend this island, how many people will be sacrificed and how much blood will be shed? But for me, it's just something that can be solved easily. He patted Wappa on the shoulder and asked with a chuckle, "How about it? Think about it." "Don't think about it, I promise you." Hearing this, without any hesitation, Wappa looked directly at William and said with a decisive tone, "As long as you can return a Payado to our Sandia clan and get rid of those enemies, I am willing to work for you." Although he is stubborn, he is not a fool. Naturally, it would be clear without William's intervention. The Shandia clan wants to take back their homeland. What kind of price will they have to pay? If just by sacrificing him, we can peacefully return to our homeland, so that the people no longer have to be displaced and can truly recuperate, what does this mean? What's more, the other party just asked him to work for them. Wappa. For a while, the warriors of the Sandia clan present. They all looked at Wappa in shock. They never expected that the other party would be so decisive and agreed to the other party's proposal. Advertisement. No need to say more, this is my own decision. Wappa waved his hand. With a stern look on his face, he said in a deep voice to his companions in the Sandia guerrillas, "I just followed Mr. William to Qinghai, and it's not an unacceptable harsh condition. If he really wants to do something, we people today I'm afraid no one will be able to go back alive. If you can use me alone to reduce the sacrifices of the people, there is no better result than this." He saw clearly. This man, who was similar to him in age but whose strength was unfathomable and unbelievably strong, really had no intention of targeting them. With the goal of the Sandia clan, there is no conflict. It's refreshing enough, seeing Wappa being so straightforward. William patted him on the shoulder and couldn't help laughing with satisfaction. "I believe you won't regret your choice today. Then, I declare, this island belongs to your Sandia clan." Gulu. Is this real? Hear William say this. These Shandia warriors were all stunned. It's like being in a dream, but it feels a little unreal. Did they so easily complete the mission that the ancestors of the Sandia clan had fought tenaciously for hundreds of years, paid countless blood and tears, and fought with perseverance? Oh, very good. Come to your senses. Everyone could not help crying with joy and was full of excitement. After many years, the long-occupied island of gods, a Payado, once again belongs to the Sandia clan. Finally, they no longer have to be displaced and can return to their hometown. Their descendants can also live on this island for generations to come, living and working in peace and contentment. Lord William. I'm so grateful. Meeting William didn't seem like a fake. Wappa's eyes were red and he knelt on one knee. Putting his right fist against his heart, he swore loudly. I will devote my loyalty to the glory of the great warrior Calgera and never betray him. Chapter 35 Golden Bell, Sniper? Dang. Dang. Half an hour later, the top of a huge vine. The warriors of the Sandia clan stared blankly at the huge golden bell tower in front of them. Some indescribable shock, but more of an excitement. And on top of the magnificent bell tower, Wappa is pushing the bell with all his strength, ringing the golden bell that has been silent for a long time. The bells resounded through the sky, crisp and sweet. It seems to be able to cleanse one's soul, makes people forget all their troubles and sorrows. Very good. Is this the golden bell passed down from generation to generation by the Sandia family? We finally fulfilled the last wish of the great warrior Calgera, lit the lamp of Zandia, and rang the golden bell. A famous Zandian warrior, full of joy, excited. Thank you very much, Lord William. Knocked a dozen times in a row. With excitement on his face, Wappa let go of Zhang Chu. He came to William and bowed deeply to him, full of gratitude. Thank you for helping us, the Shandia clan. Ring the golden bell again and fulfill the agreement between our ancestors, the great warrior Calgera and Noland. Since we are all our own people, it doesn't matter if you fulfill your wishes. He glanced at the solid and immortal historical stone inlaid on the golden bell tower. William crossed his arms and said directly, but let's talk first. Although the golden bell is ringing, I can't leave this bell tower to you. This golden bell tower, he was not prepared to leave it to the Sandia family. Instead, he was going to take it to Qinghai and put it on the ship of terror to serve as a window decoration. It's natural, you can take all the gold away. As for the golden clock? For the Sandia clan, although this golden bell is of great significance. But after all, William is the great benefactor of the Sandia family. They were very satisfied to be able to return to their homeland so easily without having to shed any more blood or sacrifices. Even if he is allowed to take away the golden bell, it is still appropriate. Anyway, the bell rang again, and the golden bell had completed its mission. Over at Angel Island, don't be impatient, William said directly. You settle down your own people first. He planned to go to Qinghai first and bring up Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu and others, along with sea-stone handcuffs. Enel had been tied up by him and soaked in a water tank. Only his head was exposed, and several soldiers of the Sandia clan were responsible for watching. Even the user with Logia's ability is exhausted, it was impossible to escape. Yes, Wappa nodded. He has William's back, he wasn't worried about Angel Island. Woohoo! A pair of cool black shadow wings appeared on his back, and William flapped his wings. In the odd eyes of the Sandia warriors, advertisement. It flapped its wings and flew into the distance. Now Qinghai 10,000 meters below, Gaia Island, Magic Valley Town. Some buildings became dilapidated, filled with smoke and the smell of blood. Obviously, they had just experienced a fierce war. One after another, embarrassed figures were detained by zombie soldiers and sent to the ship of terror. These are all captured pirates. Hee. Perona's spirit body is floating in the air. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed Brook and others, they put their hands on their hips and said dissatisfiedly, your movements are too slow. Hey, don't stand and talk without your back hurting, Perona. Dr. Hogba Gu, who was in ragged clothes and with a bit of bloodline, was breathing heavily and responded unhappily. Do you think we are all like you, with the ability to have ghost fruits? Under William's instructions, it's not just the zombie army led by #1 zombie General Wang Lun that goes into battle. These cadres also participated in the battle. Sharpen yourself. Ho, I have to say, the ability of the ghost fruit is indeed too powerful. Brook, holding a staff and sword on the side, was filled with emotion. After Perona's spirit body left her body, the main body hides in the castle, while the spirit body can ignore damage. In particular, those negative ghosts can easily subdue those pirates. Such an ability is too incomprehensible. Bang, accompanied by heavy footsteps. Several bloody figures. He was thrown over by the zombie General Wang Lun, who was wearing golden armor and holding a big sword. Covered in blood, he didn't know whether he was alive or dead. Hey, Wang Lun, you won't kill them all, right? Perona's eyes widened and she said loudly. That adult has to live, otherwise why would he need so much effort? I have no choice but to encounter a few tough guys, so I have to be more aggressive. His long beard swung. Wang Lun grinned there, showing his sinister teeth, and said with a strange smile. They are indeed some extraordinary guys. Hogbagu stepped forward. After checking the injuries of several people, they dealt with them briefly. At the same time, he flipped through the bounty manual and confirmed the identities of the 3 pirates. Histilda, the Ocelot Khalid with a bounty of 83 million belly, and the pirate with a bounty of 55 million belly, Ironhand Haas, Conspirator Buck with a bounty of 22 million baileys. We caught 7 pirates with a bounty of more than 10 million, and the highest bounty was over 80 million. The harvest is not small. Now I don't have to worry about the material to resurrect more zombie generals. Oh ho, I'm so looking forward to that. Suddenly, Brook's hair stood on end as he was laughing. He subconsciously dodged, but in the end it was a step too late. Bang! White bones spattered, and his skull was shot directly through by a bullet that broke through the air. The other 2 empty projectiles hit the wall behind with unabated force. It left shocking bullet holes. Advertisement, what? Brook. Master Brook, Perona, Hogba Gu and the others, as well as the zombie soldiers around them. All of them couldn't help but change their expressions, and immediately became vigilant. And the zombie General Wang Lun. With his tall body, he blocked directly in front of them. Brush. Deep in the forest in the distance, a black figure flashed past. Over there. That damn guy. Perona was frightened, annoyed, and murderous. Relying on the Invincible, spiritual state, he flew directly over. Damn, it was a sniper. Brook, who was lying there, staggered to his feet and covered his skull that was shot through. It was such a close call, I almost got killed. If it weren't for him, the underworld fruit user, he would be dead, with only a skeleton left. I'm afraid he was really going to be killed because of his carelessness. What is the structure of your body? When Hogbajiu saw this, he bared his teeth and complained. At the same time, he was a little nervous and alert. He quickly stepped forward and placed his right hand on the broken skull. The ability of Paramecia Repair Fruit is activated. Brush. A faint blue light flashed. Brook's skull, which was shot through, returned to its original shape. In mint condition. In the forest, Perona missed. After arriving in the forest, the figure hiding in the dark had already escaped. Can you escape? Negative ghost? She did not hesitate and opened her hands. A large number of negative ghosts continued to fly out of the palms and formed a row. Search for me. Order them to search everywhere. After all, the guy who was attacking in secret was blocked. Bang, bang. In the jungle, gunfire rang out. Bullets passed through the ghost one after another. The young man wearing a strange hat, a black cloak, and a sniper scope on his right eye was full of shock. The attack is ineffective? Subconsciously, he was about to retreat, but it was already too late. A jelly-like ghost flew directly over, passed through his body. What? His whole face turned purple instantly. Kneeling there, extremely depressed. I want to be a salted fish. Hey, Tilda, I didn't expect that there was another fish that slipped through the net. Perona floated over and looked down at the sniper who was easily subdued by the negative ghost. But you are so arrogant. If you don't hide properly, you still dare to provoke us like this. Chapter 36. Yinyu, Fan-oka, William's recruitment, 4th update. Is this the guy who attacked me? Not long after. Looking at the sniper who almost killed him before and was captured. Brook was surprised. Yes, Lord William is back. Perona is floating in the air, but just as he was about to say something, he caught a glimpse of the distant sky from the corner of his eye, and a black shadow was flying down. Suddenly everyone screamed in surprise. What? Come back so soon? Huobugu and Brook couldn't help but be overjoyed. Well, the battle is quite fierce, William is very fast. He soon landed on the terrifying ship and had a panoramic view of the smoke-filled and messy Demon Valley town. A pair of dark shadow wings shrank like silk and disappeared. Looking at Fan-oka being escorted over, some were surprised. Recognized each other. A sniper from East Blue and a future member of the Blackbeard Pirates, Ototsu, Fan-oka. Lord William, you are back. Tisk, what does Sky Island look like? Perona, Brook, and Hogbaguba all came forward. Can't wait to ask there. William waved his hand and did not rush to respond to the questions raised by Perona and others. Arriving in front of Fan-oka, who was tied up and being escorted by zombie soldiers, he asked with a chuckle. You are East Blue's famous bounty hunter, Ototsu, Fan-oka, right? Sir William, do you know him? The three people in Perona were full of surprise. Unexpectedly, William actually knew the name of this sniper. I'm really honored to be known by such a big shot like you. Fan-oka took a deep breath. Looking at William's excessively young figure, he laughed at himself. What a miscalculation. I didn't expect a big shot like you to show up here. He had noticed it from afar before. A strong man left the terrifying ship and flew towards the sky. Advertisement at first, he thought it was the 7 warlords of the sea Gekko Moria who had left. Overconfidence, overestimating oneself, thinking that one can escape unscathed after a cold shot. Only then took the risk to sneak attack Brook. It's just that Fan-oka really didn't expect it. The departing figure turned out to be the Black Prison. William Obask, who had caused a scene in Eni's lobby 3 months ago, betrayed the world government, and was offered a bounty of 200 million belly. It seems that you also know me. William chuckled. Then, I won't beat around the bush. He did not hide his appearance, so it was not surprising that he was recognized by Fan-oka. After all, no matter what, he is still a big pirate, with a bounty of 200 million belly. And it's only been a few months since the big scene at Eni's lobby. It can be said that it is in full swing. You have 2 choices. One is to become a prisoner of the hell pirates like them, imprisoned in a dark dungeon, suffering day and night, waiting for death. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed Fan-oka, William said bluntly, another one, join us. Our hell pirates also need an excellent sniper. Although the current strength is still a bit weak. But after all, it is a seed with potential, and there is still a lot of room for growth in the future. He doesn't mind recruiting. Lord William. Hearing what William said, Perona was surprised. Are you going to recruit this guy? Oh ho, if nothing else, this guy's shooting skills are really good. If I hadn't only had a handful of bones left, he would have almost killed me, Brook said with a smile. Hiss Tilda, are you going to add another member? Dr. Haguba laughed strangely. He believed in this adult's vision. And I have to admit that the opponent's marksmanship is indeed very powerful. It really shocked him into a cold sweat. Fortunately, I picked the wrong target. Hell pirates. Wait, I'm a little confused. Doesn't this ship belong to Gekko Moria? Fan Oka looked at Obask William, who was recruiting him in front of him, a little surprised, and said in a deep voice. You must have joined his command, right? He once collected some information. It becomes clear that the owners of the terror ship are the 7 warlords of the sea Gekko Moria. But judging from William's previous tone, as well as the attitudes of Perona, Brook and others, it seems that the other party is the owner of this ship. This made Van Oka a little confused. Are you talking about him? William raised his eyebrows. Advertisement. The shadow under his feet stood up directly. In Fan Oka's shocked eyes, it suddenly swelled. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it transformed into a bloated and tall figure. Is this Gekko Moria? Fan Oka's pupils shrank sharply, apparently recognizing the famous 7 warlords of the sea. I'm sorry, just over 2 months ago, Gekko Moria was killed by Sir William, and even the fruit ability was obtained by him. Dr. Haguba on the side introduced with a strange smile. Now, the owner of this terrifying ship is Lord William. Hearing Hogba Gu say this, Van Oka couldn't help but gasp. The dignified 7 warlords of the sea were killed so quietly. And even the fruit ability was obtained by Black Prison William. It's incredible. It's your honor to be favored by Lord William. Don't be ungrateful, you guy. Perona, who was floating in the air, put her hands on her hips and looked down at Fan Oka. Although she didn't think there was anything special about the other party. But since it is this adult's decision, I naturally fully support it. He's just a sniper with little strength, and he's still a prisoner. It is really the other party's luck to be able to follow Lord William. Do you have any other questions? William asked with a smile. The shadow mage who transformed into Moria shrank directly and turned into a shadow again. Although it's an imperfect start, I believe it's destiny. Not much hesitation. Looking at William with burning eyes, Fan Oka said directly there, please give me more advice, Sir William. At such a young age, he killed a long-established strong man like Gekko Moria and even replaced him. Such a young and strong person can be said to have unlimited potential in the future. He is a prisoner at the mercy of others. There is no reason to refuse to follow. Welcome to join, I believe you won't regret it. William chuckled, signaling the zombie soldiers to release Van Oka. This is how he likes to know the current affairs. Chapter 37. The Truth About Golden Land, the Dull People. Wow, is this Sky Island? So amazing, less than half an hour. Thousands of meters high in the sky. The large raptor transformed by the ability of the shadow fruit to manipulate shadows fluttered its wings there. Straight through the sea of clouds, it was hit by continuous sea currents that surged into the sky in the past, and it still remains a large hole that penetrates to this day. With Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu, and a newly joined sniper, Yin Yu, Van Oka and others, they came to the White Sea at an altitude of 7,000 meters. The vast sea of clouds shocked them. No, this is just the White Sea. The real Sky Island is still on the higher White Sea. William controlled the giant bird made of shadows and continued to spread its wings into the distance. Before coming down, he had already asked the warriors of the Sandia clan. Know the location of the Gate of Heaven. Soon we crossed the vast White Sea and followed the crisscrossing cloud paths. Arriving at the huge Gate of Heaven, wait, you guys. Looking at the giant black bird flapping its wings and the figures above. Obasan, who had a pair of white wings on his back and was full of shock, was about to say something. Buzz. But he didn't wait for her to finish. The next moment, William's eyes suddenly froze. Noisy. Plop. She rolled her eyes, foamed at the mouth, and fainted. This is, Van Oka was astonished. As a newcomer, he has just entered the Grand Line not long ago. Naturally never heard of Conqueror's Hockey. Yo ho ho ho, this is Conqueror's Hockey. It is said that not even one person in a million has the qualifications to be a king. Brook on the side did not hate Van Oka because he almost killed him before. Instead, he introduced him. This is Sir William's innate power. You don't need to take action, just rely on your own courage. To intimidate, shock and stun the enemy. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. Even a warrior who has experienced hundreds of battles and is determined, cannot withstand the impact of conquerors, and will lose consciousness in an instant. Dr. Hogba Gu added, if the strength is not strong enough, let alone one person, even an army of thousands of people will be easily stunned by Sir William. Hiss. Conqueror's Hockey. Hear the words, Van Oka couldn't help but gasp. Looking at William's young figure, his eyes were full of burning passion, and he smiled. It seems that I really made an extremely correct choice. Of course, advertisement Perona was filled with pride. Okay. Hold on tight, don't fall. William crossed his arms and was there to remind him. Wow, is this Sky Island? It's just like a fairy tale. Beautiful. Not long after, Perona, Brook, Van Oka, and Hogba Gugu were completely shocked. I stared blankly ahead at the breathtakingly beautiful island of gods, a Peado, nestled in the sea of clouds, lined with green trees and shrouded in mist. Some are speechless. This is the island of gods, a Peado. Strictly speaking, it is not the real Sky Island. The real Sky Island is made up of island clouds. William did not show any concern and directly introduced them to them. Its true origin is actually the other half of Guy Island. What? The other half of Guy Island? How can this be? Are you kidding? Sir William? Hear William say this? Perona, Brook, and Hogbagu were all a little shocked. Some couldn't believe it. It was not like they had never seen Gaia Island thousands of meters above the ground. Those plants alone are many times bigger than the ones below, right? This island was washed up from Qinghai by an unprecedented giant sea current about 400 years ago. William shrugged. He briefly introduced them to them. As for the vegetation and animals, the reason why there have been such big changes is because of the unique climate and environment of Sky Island. The legendary Golden Land is real, but it washed up on Sky Island, turning the adventurer Noland into a well-known liar. Hiss, incredible. Tisk, tisk, I can't believe it. Does the legendary Golden Land really exist? That's great. Perona and others were stunned, shocked beyond words. If it wasn't clear, William couldn't have lied, and they couldn't believe it. At the same time, there was so much excitement and so much excitement. There's someone on the island. Are these the Aborigines of Sky Island? Advertisement. Are those little wings on their backs decorations or real wings? Soon. William took them directly. Arrival at the Island of the Gods, Apeado. And a large number of members of the Shandia clan had begun to gather there, full of excitement. There they sang, danced and cried with joy. Upon discovering the arrival of the giant black bird, many people were subconsciously wary. But the warriors of the Shandia clan all recognized William, the leader above, so they did not cause much panic. But they were all full of curiosity, looking at William, Perona and others. Lord William. Wappa came forward. There he pointed to the old man beside him and introduced William. This is the patriarch of our Shandia clan. Hello, Sir William from Qinghai, I am the leader of the Shandia clan. The old chief of the Shandia clan leaned on crutches and bowed there. Thank you very much for your help, allowing us to return to our homeland after 400 years of absence. And also rang the golden bell to complete the battle between the great warrior Calgera and Noland's last wish. He did not expect something. This time Wappa led the guerrillas on an expedition, but something like this happened. But this is obviously a good thing. The Sandia family finally fulfilled their long-cherished wish and returned to their homeland. You're welcome, I just fancy Wappa's potential and want him to follow me, William said with a smile. No, it is Wappa's honor to be appreciated by you, the old chief of the Shandia clan said directly. It is really incredible that this Qinghai strongman, who is similar in age to Wappa, has such great power. Wappa followed such a figure to Qinghai, maybe not a bad thing. Mr. William, you and your companions have come from afar. Please let us, the Shandia family, entertain you. That would be disrespectful. Goodwill towards the Sandia clan. William did not refuse and agreed to the banquet invitation with a smile. Perona and others were full of excitement and couldn't wait to explore the island to find the legendary gold. By the way, Sir William, that guy Enel has woken up and has been shouting and cursing. Wappa remembered something and asked directly, do you want to see him? Of course, I brought this thing here specially to entertain him. William chuckled. He directly took out the seastone handcuffs from his waist. Before that guy Enel gave in completely, he is not ready to let the other party go. Chapter 38 Massive Gold, Wappa is targeted 3 days passed by in a hurry. Under the warm hospitality of the Sandia family, on the Island of Gods, Apeado, a bonfire banquet was held for 3 consecutive days and nights. During this period, William took Wappa and others directly to Angel Island, and started a killing spree. Over at Angel Island, the White Berets who were usually responsible for managing public security were directly slaughtered. It severely shocked the natives of Angel Island who, after hearing that Enel was defeated, began to make plans to invite the expelled former God Gon 4 back and clamored to take back the Island of God, Apeado. In the end, he was persuaded by his predecessor, God Gon 4. The Sandia clan and Angel Island reached a peace agreement. Although, this was taken due to William's overwhelming power. But it has to be said, sometimes such force to shock is still very useful. As for whether the two parties could truly coexist peacefully for a long time, William didn't bother to care. At the very least, he could guarantee that he would be alive. Angel Island will never dare to act rashly again. Wow, now. Island of Gods Apeado, in front of a huge cave. Perona, Brook, Hogba Vanoka. His eyes widened and he looked at the exaggerated pile of gold treasures in front of him like a mountain. Among them, the golden bell tower was transported down from the vines. Even if I have seen it more than once, still can't help but feel a little deeply shocked. Awesome, getting rich. Perona lay down on the mountain of real gold. He squinted his crescent eyes and showed an extremely satisfied smile. Gulu. It feels like a dream. Even Brook, the musician who was reduced to a skeleton, couldn't help but breathe quickly and his eyes gleamed. It's not that they are money-crazed, it's just that these golds are too exaggerated. I'm afraid I can easily buy a country. Tisk, tisk, this is the first time I've seen so much gold. Advertisement Fanoka took a deep breath and couldn't help but sigh. I really can't calm down, they couldn't help but be excited. These days, all the gold on Sky Island, in addition to the gold that has been collected by the gods of Sky Island in the past, as well as Enel and others. Other ancient ruins buried in the white clouds that cannot be easily discovered, as well as the scattered gold jewelry inside. William easily found them all with the power of the shadow fruit. Gathered here. It's not just this gold. William sat on the steps of the huge golden clock tower and said with a chuckle. Enel tried to use this gold to build an ark that could fly, and collected a large number of extinct wind-breathing shells, all of which are also real treasures. Especially, with the design drawings of the ark, we can also hire a shipwright to build a flying warship. Not ready to abandon the ship of terror though, but William also planned to build a large warship capable of direct flight. Moreover, although gold has excellent electrical conductivity, except for some special necessary devices, there is no need to use so much gold in shipbuilding materials. Other conductive materials can also be substituted. Lord William, is that a ship powered by electricity? Van Oka asked there. That guy Enel won't agree to join us easily, right? Of course, they have all seen the god imprisoned by William. The opponent turned out to be a user with the rare Logia Thunder Fruit ability, which really surprised them. But even if he is reduced to a prisoner, he still has that arrogant attitude. It still left Van Oka, Perona and others speechless. Don't worry, he will give in, William shrugged. If Enel is really unwilling to give in, he doesn't mind trying to figure out if he can find the Logia Dark Fruit. Separate Logia Thunder Fruit's ability from the opponent. However, William currently has a bold idea, but without verification, he was not sure whether it could succeed. Lord William, it's been 3 days. Perona grabbed a gold crown, put it on her head, and asked, are we leaving here? 3 days at Sky Island. She has almost visited this island and Angel Island. Mainly because of the hatred, awe, and fear in the eyes of the native people on Angel Island, she found it really boring. Advertisement. I just bought some Sky Island specialties and various shellfish. Well, the things promised to Wappa have been completed. The gold has almost been collected, and the rare shellfish have also been collected one by one. William smiled and nodded. It's almost time to leave. I am also ready and can leave with Sir William at any time. At this time, Wappa, with a strong breath, came over. Crossing his arms, he said in a deep voice, speaking of which, I'm also very curious about what Qinghai is like. Then just leave this afternoon, William nodded. Just in time, he was ready to make his next plan. Wapple, the king of the Drum Kingdom with the ability of Paramisha Munch Fruit. William was not prepared to let it go, even if Munch Fruit's ability was not as powerful as expected. It can easily synthesize morphological memory alloys and other rare precious metals from a variety of metals it swallows. Capturing him as a toolman and opening a rare metal export company can make the Hell Pirates make a lot of money. Coupled with the massive gold obtained on Sky Island. Even if there was an accident at the Golden Emperor's place, the Hell Pirates no longer need to worry about the funds needed for development in a short period of time. Hey, Sir William, I have a question. Brooke asked curiously. How can we take so much gold with us? Hearing this, Fan Oka, Perona, Hogba Gu and others couldn't help but look over. If you can't take this much gold with you, even if it can be temporarily stored on Sky Island, it's also a bit regrettable. Simple. William raised his right hand slightly. One after another, subtle and tough shadow lines are visible to the naked eye. Emerging from the 5 fingers, dancing there. Use the shadow threads to interweave them into a network, trap them, and hang them directly from the sea of clouds. String fruit can easily simulate most of the methods with the ability of the shadow fruit. The weight of this gold is not light, and it is bound to sink directly to the sea bottom and pass through the thick sea of clouds. He just needs to be hung with a lot of shadow lines. It's just a little bit laborious. Chapter 39. The Expanding Team, Silver Axe and John. Lord William. Hiss, those are all. Gold? Does the legendary Golden Land really exist? Gulu, this is too much, on a huge ship of terror. Watching the gleaming gold being trapped in a large net intertwined with massive black threads and being lowered from the sky one after another. The large number of zombie soldiers, as well as the zombie generals, couldn't help but be filled with shock. Some couldn't believe their eyes, staring blankly at the huge amount of gold. It is worth mentioning that there are currently more than 500 zombies on the ship of terror, and they are commanded by 9 zombie generals. Before taking Perona and others to Sky Island, in order to prevent someone from invading the terrifying ship that he regarded as his home base, William deliberately plundered the captured pirate shadows and once again created 8 zombie generals to use as combat power. Every zombie general is at least capable of confronting or even crushing pirates with bounties worth over 100 million. Especially the number 2 zombie general John and the number 3 zombie general Silver Axe. These two were notorious pirates in their lifetime and once belonged to the Rocks Pirate. His strength is not inferior to that of zombie general number 1, Wang Lun. However, the demon Oz, whom he regarded as a special zombie, and the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma. William still has it. There was no rush to resurrect them. When, the huge golden bell tower, he landed firmly on the vast training field. It is splendid and full of historical atmosphere, which is shocking. Move all this gold to the castle. William was there giving orders. Instruct Wang Lun, John and other zombie generals to move the mountains of dazzling gold into the castle and store it away. The castle Moria built during her lifetime was huge enough. The treasure trove should barely fit inside. Brush. The explanation was completed. Advertisement. William has already passed the shadow line connecting Sky Island. He directly activated Instant Shadow and disappeared from the sight of these zombies. Because it still takes some time to bring Perona and others down. Almost 2 hours later, in the surprised eyes of those zombie legions, a huge black raptor carrying Wappa, Perona, Brook, Vanoka, Hogba Gu and others arrived on the ship of terror. Lord William, is this your ship? Wappa was in a daze. Eyes widened. He looked at this ridiculously large and jaw-dropping pirate ship in shock. The land they had fought so hard for on Sky Island was not worth mentioning. Don't be so surprised. William shrugged. In Qinghai, the sea is dotted with countless islands, large and small, and this ship was transformed from an island. Although he did not build the terror ship, it has now become his trophy. Incredible! Wappa exclaimed. Brook patted his shoulder and said with a friendly smile, "Hey, it's your first time in Qinghai, you'll get used to it." Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. It's so majestic. Dr. Hogba Gu looked at the glittering golden bell tower, full of excitement. Really, Vanoka nodded. No matter how many times I've seen it. Whenever I see this golden bell tower, I can't help but be a little shocked. After all, it is too big. Humph, is this Qinghai? Look around. Enel, whose hands were bound by sea-stone handcuffs and was a prisoner, looked arrogant. There's nothing too conspicuous about it. Still so unruly, there was absolutely no intention of giving in. Advertisement. Even if he was crushed by William, he was still very unconvinced in his heart. I thought I was careless. Perona, Brook, Vanoka and others all ignored Enel. In the past few days, I have been treating this guy with a bad temper and a tough temper. I have long been used to it. Even William was too lazy to pay attention to this guy. Although I have repeatedly popularized science for Enel, I hope he will stop looking at the sky from a well. But the arrogant guy still refused to bow his head. Lord William, 3 zombie generals, Wang Lun, John, and Silver Axe, came over. Are there any blind people these days? William asked directly. Yes, but don't worry, we have solved them all, the 3 great zombie generals, the confident Kaido. That's good. William nodded with satisfaction. Although these zombie generals have limited potential and have some flaws and weaknesses. For a truly strong person, it is completely worth mentioning. But if we compare it to the teams under the Pirate Emperor in New World, act as a combat force at the level of ordinary cadres. Still useful. Sir William, our actions on Guy Island were reported by the World Economic News. A zombie soldier steps forward. Give the newspapers from the past 3 days to William. Oh, William raised his eyebrows, but it's not surprising. After all, the Hell Pirates' actions this time can be said to be a grand one. However, the World Economic News only reported that Gekko Moria suddenly led the Hell Pirates to attack Demon Valley Town and captured a large number of pirates. There are no other detailed reports. Chapter 40 The Kidnapped King, The Poker Pirates, 4th update. In the blink of an eye, a week passed like this. The ship of terror set sail again according to the original plan and continued to move forward. In addition to developing fruit abilities, William exercises physical skills and practices swordsmanship. It is to guide the practice of Wappa, Perona, Brook, Vanoka, Hogba Gu and others. What makes him more satisfied is that Perona and Brook have made rapid progress and have mastered the 6 types of shaving. The reason why Brook came from behind is not only because of his own strength, but also because he only has a handful of bones left and his body weight is relatively light, so practicing shaving can be said to be twice the result with half the effort. But Wappa showed his tenacious will during his hard training. Let Perona, Brook and others marvel. Lord William, this is the permanent record pointer of the Drum Kingdom. This day, at noon, when William and others finished their training and began to enjoy their meals, a zombie soldier respectfully handed over a record pointer. Lord William, aren't we going directly to Prehistoric Island? Hogba Gu was filled with surprise. According to William's plan, they will next go to Prehistoric Island Lil Garden, and then to Bucklow Island located at the entrance of the Grand Line to retrieve the treasure in the treasure map. Then, fulfill Brook's wish and head to Twin Point, the entrance to the Grand Line. Well, the course remains unchanged, but I may have to leave in the next 2 days. After swallowing a piece of bone and meat, William said nonchalantly. Next, he is going to visit the Drum Kingdom. Capture Drum King Wapple, who is Paramisha Munch Fruit's ability user. After all, if you don't have such an ability in hand, it would be a waste of money to let that guy waste Munch Fruit's ability. But considering that the Drum Kingdom is, after all, one of the countries that joins the world government. Now he still needs to wear the cloak of 7 warlords of the sea, but it is difficult to attack directly, otherwise he will definitely anger the world government. In order to appease other world government member countries, the world government will definitely directly remove Gekko Moria from the 7 warlords of the sea, and even send marines to attack it. Therefore, there is no need to make such a big fanfare. It is the best policy to seize the person quietly to avoid attracting suspicion and attention from the outside world. Advertisement, Sir William, do you want to leave alone? Perona was surprised. Well, we'll set off in a moment. After swallowing a piece of pizza, William ordered, you just stay on the boat and continue on your way. I will meet you again then. Woohoo! Not long after, under the watch of Wappa, Perona, Brook and others. After finishing his meal, William didn't waste any more time. He took some dry food and the permanent record pointer of the Drum Kingdom and flew directly towards the distant sky. The next day, at dusk, Follow the guidance of the record pointer. William, who was tired of his travels, came to the Drum Kingdom. Huh, it's really a bit cold. Looking at this winter island covered in ice and snow, with the dark devil's shadow wings on his back, William chuckled from high in the sky. The royal castle is located on the snowy peak. It looks like an iron bucket standing there, which is very eye-catching. After William finished his dinner in the deserted wilderness, it was already evening. In the dark night, he easily sneaked into the castle where the royal family was. It didn't take much effort to find out the location of King Wobble. Buzz. An invisible wave spread suddenly. One of the guards foamed at the mouth, lost consciousness and fell down. Including Wobble himself, who was bloated and was sleeping soundly. He directly used the prepared sea stone handcuffs to cuff the unconscious Wobble. William took him directly and left the Drum Kingdom quietly. No, King Wobble has been kidnapped. The next day, early in the morning, the news that King Wobble had been kidnapped spread directly throughout the Drum Kingdom, causing a huge sensation. However, countless people in the Drum Kingdom sang and danced and played their crowns to celebrate. Many people cried with joy and prayed that Wobble would never come back. This shows how unpopular this king is. Advertisement. However, this has nothing to do with William, at this time. An uninhabited island. William took the kidnapped Wobble with him and briefly rested there. Ah, who are you? Wobble, who was bloated and ugly, was full of fear and panic, struggling desperately. However, it is bound up by the dark shadow lines. Couldn't move at all. Moreover, his hands were handcuffed to sea stone. In the past, with the blessing of the Munch Munch fruit ability, the teeth that could not only be opened extremely wide, but could easily crush steel, were ineffective. I am the king of a country that has joined the world government. If you know what I am doing, let me go quickly. The world government will not let you go, he said loudly and with a stern voice. Shut up. William, who was eating a piece of beef jerky there, glanced at him. The ability of the shadow fruit was activated, and a black substance condensed on his hand, and he flicked it casually. Woo. Woo. The black substance was like tape, sealing Waipol's mouth firmly. He couldn't speak anymore. Suddenly, William's eyes narrowed. Looking at the sea in the distance, a black spot grew bigger and bigger, and it turned out to be a ship. And it's also a pirate ship. Pirate ship? He took out a manual and flipped through it. After comparing the increasingly clear pirate flags above, he quickly found the relevant information. William raised his eyebrows. The poker pirates? Captain the Big Bear King, with a bounty of 11.6 million Baileys? Or is it Paramecia, the one with the steel fruit ability? The bounty is low though, but as a user with the ability of the iron fruit, his strength is obviously more than that. Looking at the struggling Wobble, William smiled. Just right, you can give it a try. Chapter 41 A Bold Attempt, Recycling Ability. Captain, there seems to be someone on the island. On the sea. On the pirate ship that was approaching slowly. A lookout was there using a monocular telescope to observe the island ahead. He reported loudly to the tall, rough-looking Big Bear King wearing a cloak below. Ahahaha, I've been almost bored these days, finally there's some fun. The Big Bear King got interested. He took the monocular telescope and noticed two figures on the coast on the island in the distance. He couldn't help but grin and said, push the cannon up, fire directly at Lousy, and bomb them. Yes, very quickly. Several pirates from the poker pirates pushed out a cannon, began to adjust the muzzle, and aimed at the island ahead. Fire. The Big Bear King ordered. However, after loading the shells, the gunner who was holding a torch and preparing to ignite suddenly froze there. Ah, Captain, I can't move. Me too. What's going on? Damn. A pirate screamed in fear. He tried to struggle, but found that he couldn't move no matter what. Damn. What's going on? The Great Bear King's face changed drastically. Because he was also shocked to find that he couldn't move either. Line. His pupils shrank sharply. He noticed that there were faint black lines in the air that were inaudible. But they were not connecting their bodies, but they were connecting their shadows. The Great Bear King was shocked and angry, and even a little panicked. Is it a power user? Clang. Clang. Bang. Bang. Ah, ah. No, stop it. I can't control it. My body is moving on its own. Help. Woo. In the Great Bear King's terrified eyes. Pirates from the poker pirates screamed in panic. They actually raised swords, guns and other weapons and fought each other there. Damn it. Stop. Advertisement soon. The Big Bear King himself, uncontrollably, pulled out the pistol from his waist. Continuously shot at his subordinates. Bang bang. Ah. The screams continued. In a moment, one after another, figures fell in a pool of blood. Not long. Slowly moving forward, approaching the pirate ship on the uninhabited island. Stranded on the coast. William jumped lightly, jumped onto the pirate ship. Standing there stupidly, unable to move, the Big Bear King, who was full of panic, anger, unwillingness, and despair, had his pupils shrank. It's you. Black Prison, Obask William. It seems that I'm quite famous, William chuckled. It's not surprising that the Big Bear King recognized him. After all, he is also a big pirate with a bounty of 200 million Baileys. At least in the first half of the Grand Line, for those little pirates who have not even been to the New World, he is already an absolute big shot. Black lines surged between his 5 fingers, retracted the shadow line. Ah! Regained freedom. The Great Bear King almost stumbled and found that he could move. Damn B*************************************** D. His face became ferocious. His fists suddenly turned red and hot, emitting amazing heat. He slammed into William fiercely. Don't overestimate your ability. Shadow bind. William's face remained unchanged. Facing the hot red steel fist mark, he did not dodge or evade at all. Swish. It was as if time had stopped. The Great Bear King rushed over with a steel fist mark. The whole person froze there. The fist mark emitting high heat was less than 10 centimeters away from William's face. The amazing heat wave came towards him. What? The panicked Great Bear King was shocked. A black shadow extended from William's feet, connecting to his own shadow. A futile resistance. The next moment, advertisement. William hooked his left index finger. A shadow line that was almost invisible to the naked eye flew out. Wrapped around armament hockey, it became dark and shiny, and shone with cold light. Rip. In an instant, blood splattered. The bloody arm flew up. It was cut off ruthlessly. Ah! The Big Bear King, who was struggling but unable to move, screamed miserably. His eyes bulged, his face was distorted, and he was in great pain. He was sweating profusely. Swish. The black shadow, like a fluid. It instantly covered the Big Bear King's entire body. And William walked directly into the cabin. He soon found his target in the kitchen. Carrying a large bag of various fruits, William returned to the uninhabited island with the Big Bear King who could not move. Possessed by a puppet, in Waipal's horrified eyes. The Shadow Mage stood up. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it sank into his body. The next moment, he was shaken all over. Bang! The seastone handcuffs were untied. The shadow lines that bound him were also removed by William. Try it. William threw the big bag of fruit directly over. At the same time, on his right hand, a shadow tentacle emerged. It turned into an extremely sharp spear tip. It instantly pierced the heart of the Big Bear King and killed him. Wapple suddenly opened his mouth wide. He swallowed the whole bag of fruit alive. The next moment, he actually pounced directly on the Big Bear King who was killed by William. The exaggerated and eerie big mouth kept opening. In 3 or 5 times, the Big Bear King was swallowed alive. Not long after, bang, a bloody corpse was spit out. At the same time, there was a fruit with strange patterns. Did it succeed? William's eyes condensed. He couldn't help but smile. Chapter 42 Transparent Fruit and Thunderfruit, Modified Version. Crash. Early morning. The wind is gentle and the sun is shining, and the waves are blooming. The dark birds of prey spread their wings and glide there, circling down. William took Wapple and followed the guidance of the lifeguard back to the ship of terror. Advertisement, Lord William. Who is this guy? Saw a tied-up Wapple. Wappa, Perona, Brook, Vanoka and others are full of surprises. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. We all saw the news in the newspaper, saying that the king of the Drum Kingdom was kidnapped. Wapple looks a little familiar. Hogba Gu raised the newspaper in his hand and said in surprise, "Did you do it, Lord William?" On the headlines of the newspaper, it was the news that Drum King Wapple had been kidnapped. Well, he is a person with the ability of Paramisha munch fruit. William nodded, chuckled and said, "Not only can you synthesize the things you swallow, you can also fuse them with yourself. You can even directly synthesize special rare metals from a variety of metal minerals you swallowed. This ability is of immeasurable value." Tisk tisk. I see, here William's introduction. Perona, Vanoka, Hogba Gu and others could not help but marvel. No wonder William made a special trip to the Drum Kingdom. Kidnap the other party. However, the truly amazing ability of munch fruit is more than that. The corners of his mouth turned up. William chuckled. Later, I will open your eyes. Hearing this, everyone was surprised. With curiosity, he followed William towards the castle. Go get a bag of fruit. I want all kinds of fruits. Yes, not long after, underground of the castle. In a dark prison. Bang. Looking at Absalom spit out by Wapple and the strange devil fruit. Wappa, Perona, Vanoka, Brook, Hogba Gu and others were all stunned. Everyone was stunned, some couldn't believe their eyes. Gulu. Perona swallowed. Is this? Really? That Absalom guy's ability, Paramisha transparent fruit, has been recovered? Hogbubaku's eyes were bulging, it was almost unbelievable, and his voice was trembling. Incredible. Vanoka marveled. Immediately his eyes lit up, full of excitement. He could imagine how useful this ability would be. Even if William wanted to, he could hunt down ability users and form a powerful army of ability users. Didn't it say that after the person with abilities dies, the devil fruit will reappear randomly? Wappa gasped. Join the Hell Pirates these days. Under the introduction of Brook, Hogba Gu and others, he continued to absorb the knowledge and information of Qinghai. Now, he certainly doesn't know anything about devil fruit. Naturally, he can deprive others of their devil fruit abilities. What an exaggeration. Advertisement, originally, I just made a bold guess and didn't hold out much hope. William took over the ability of the transparent fruit and tossed it there. I didn't expect it to be successful. It was indeed an unexpected surprise. This is yours, Oka. With that said, he threw the transparent fruit directly to Fan Oka. At first, he really didn't have high hopes for Munch Munch Fruit's ability to rob others. I just want to have the Munch Munch Fruit's ability user in my hand. Let him act as a mining tool, man, just working for yourself. Catch that fruit. Van Oka was surprised and delighted. I think there is no one more suitable for it than you, a sniper, William said with a chuckle. The ability of the transparent fruit can make the user and even the targets they come into contact with become transparent and invisible. Such Bug's invisibility ability is coupled with Van Oka's excellent marksmanship. Couldn't be a better fit. Thank you very much, then you're welcome. Van Oka didn't hesitate. Such an ability is simply a dream for a sniper like him. I couldn't wait and took a bite. His face turned purple and he almost retched. Although I was mentally prepared, it tastes really bad. He knew it didn't taste good, but he didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. I'm afraid I will never forget this taste in this life. Oh ho ho ho, the taste of devil fruit is something you will never forget. Brooke said with a strange smile. Sir William, are you going to take back Enel's ability? Hogba Gu asked excitedly. Huo Gubagoo is right, that guy with his nostrils turned upward is too unruly, Perona said loudly. Even if he is really willing to bow his head, I'm afraid he is pretending to join us with ulterior motives. Possible betrayal. Well, I originally kept him because I didn't want to waste a top-notch Logia fruit. William did not hesitate and nodded directly. There is really no need to keep him now. Keep Enel at first. It's not because of the other person's talent at all. I just don't want to miss Logia Thunderfruit's ability in vain. Now that there is a way to recover the fruit's ability, and the arrogant guy has been unable to be subdued. He doesn't have the patience to grind it out any longer. Just do it. Less than 10 minutes, accompanied by a scream. There was a bloody corpse in the underground prison. In William's hand, there was a strange fruit that was golden in color and had lightning-shaped barbs. Tisk tisk, is this Logia Thunderfruit? Brooke, Perona, Hobaji Yu and others were all full of curiosity. They had heard William mention how exaggerated this fruit was. It may be controversial to say that Logia is the strongest. But it is definitely one of the top abilities in the sea. If nothing else, just look at Naval Headquarters and you will know. The three admirals, who represent the highest combat power of Naval Headquarters, are all top Logia ability users. However, since most of them are already capable people, I don't really have any ideas. Wappa, yours, playing with this thunder fruit. William thought for a moment and threw it directly to Wappa. No matter how powerful the ability is, there must be people who can match it and bring out its true power. Advertisement at first, he was still thinking about whether to give the other party the rat fruit, phantom beast species, and sickle weasel form ability that he snatched from the world government. But now that there are better options, the ability of that phantom beast species, the Kamita form. Instead, you can keep it and use it to train other strong people. After all, you want to challenge a behemoth like world government, which has profound foundations and many powerful people. Relying on him alone is not enough. Lord William, is this too expensive? Wappa was stunned. Subconsciously catch the thrown fruit. While a little excited, he looked at William hesitantly. Unexpectedly, the other party would give such a powerful ability directly to him. I am not stingy about cultivating my own people. William patted him on the shoulder and said bluntly, these days, I think everyone has witnessed your performance. You passed my test and are worthy of this fruit. Unlike the unruly Enel. Under William's popular science these days, Wappa, who was still somewhat arrogant in his heart, has understood how vast and wonderful the world is. No longer sit in a well and look at the sky, realizing your own weakness. In order not to hold back, but also to protect the Sandia clan. It can be said that he worked hard to practice harder and was not willing to miss any training time. William naturally noticed this. Compared to Enel, the arrogant guy who sits in a well and looks at the sky. Wappa definitely deserves this thunderfruit. Oh ho ho ho, Sir William is right, I am quite convinced. Brooke said with a smile, because he had already seen that William valued Wappa far more than anyone else. It can be said that he was trained as his right-hand man in the future. The requirements for Wappa are also more demanding and severe on weekdays. If it were Brooke himself, he thought he wouldn't be able to hold on. There are still differences between people. I really can't be jealous. Not bad, at least it's more pleasing to the eye than that guy Enel. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. It looks like our hell pirates will have one more Logia strongman. This is also destiny. Even Perona, Hogba Gu, Van Oka and others have nothing to say. Although he is already an Esper, he is still envious of top abilities like Logia Thunderfruit. However, others had no objections to William's decision. For 10 days and a half, I often trained with each other. They finally understood why this lord was so fond of Vappa, a warrior of Sandia. Even the rather arrogant Fan Oka, Perona and others couldn't help but feel a little ashamed of themselves. Under William's guidance, the other party practiced without risking his life, and the amount of training was simply exaggerated. Every day in the middle of the night or at 4 in the morning, I get up to train on my own, and my efforts are at least 10 or 20 times greater than theirs. No matter how hard or tiring he was during the training, he never complained, and he never even cried out that he was tired. He always completed the training tasks assigned by William without saying a word. And it was still overfulfilled. Even tired enough to lie down directly, or even fall asleep directly. It makes people convinced. Lord William, I will not let you down. Hold on tight to Thunderfruit. Wappa looked at William with gratitude. His eyes were full of determination and he was determined to work harder. Keep up with the opponent's footsteps as soon as possible, and you will definitely not let this adult down. One day, it will become the strongest spear and shield in his hand. Chapter 43. A small test of skills, William vs Hell Pirates, modified version. A week passed in a hurry. The disappearance of Wapple, the king of the Drum Kingdom, caused a lot of sensation. But this has nothing to do with William, and no one thinks of his 7 warlords of the sea, who hides behind the scenes. The terrifying ship continued to sail on the sea, heading towards the prehistoric island. During this period, I also encountered many pirates who had no eyesight. Especially attracted by the huge and eye-catching golden clock. However, these pirates paid the price for their greed. He became a prisoner, had his shadow taken away, and was imprisoned in a dark dungeon. Then, Lord William, we are going to be offended. On this day, the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. In the spacious training ground of the terror ship, Wappa stared at William in front of him, his eyes full of fighting intent. Not just him, but Brook, Van Oka, Perona, Hogba Gu and others. It doesn't matter, just let it go boldly. William laughed. Let me see your progress these days. Not to mention Perona and the others, even those zombie generals could not threaten him. This is the self-confidence of the strong. Ina wife. See this. Wappa is no nonsense. His right wrist turned into a strong electric light and blasted directly towards William. In the past few days, William had already introduced to him one by one a series of moves and principles developed by Enel through the Thunderfruit ability. It allowed him to gain a lot from the development of his own abilities. A lot of detours have been avoided and time has been greatly saved. Just follow William's directions and practice a little. Just be able to use those moves developed by Enel. I have a good grasp of it, even surpass the other party. Wah wah gg, the electric light shines, the astonishing thunderlight came with a blast. But William refused to dodge, and kicked out violently with his right foot, which was like lightning. Tempest kick. Call out, a fierce light green slash shot through the air. He collided fiercely with the lightning that struck suddenly. Boom boom. There was a loud roar, the lightning was dazzling and the smoke was billowing. But at the same time, brush. Van Oka moved. The whole person disappeared from William's sight at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost at the same time, gunfire echoed in an instant. Boom. 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 The air seemed to have invisible ripples, and bullets invisible to the naked eye were fired towards William. The target hits home. Show no mercy, paper arts. With the powerful observation hockey, William's entire figure was like an extremely thin piece of paper, easily dodging the 3 bullets that came from the attack. They continued unabated, leaving 3 shocking bullet holes on the wall not far away. It makes people burst into cold sweat. Shave. At this time, Perona stepped hard. At an astonishing speed, he flew in front of William. His right palm suddenly swiped. Negative ghost. Swipe. Swipe. Several negative ghosts flew out and rushed directly towards William. But there will be no time to contact William in the future. Perona felt a sharp pain coming over her. Bang, a punch hit her abdomen. The delicate face was distorted, and the gall was about to be vomited out. With a scream, it flew out like a cannonball. Perona, this level is far from enough, William chuckled. Advertisement Perona has made great progress these days despite his high-pressure training. But it's obviously still far from it. Whoosh, whoosh. William's body shook as if he felt something. Once again, a few bullets that were invisible to the naked eye flashed past, as well as those negative ghosts that were relentless and kept rushing towards me. Shave. Yi Ming song straight through, at this time. A flower in front of my eyes. Brook rushed forward at an alarming speed. Moreover, the staff sword, which had already been unsheathed, stabbed out in an instant. Wah. The sharp impact tore through the atmosphere and penetrated. But William easily dodged it. Moonwalk. Tempest kick chaos. The next moment, William pressed his feet. The whole person rushed up and stayed in midair through the atmosphere. Locked down Brook below. His right foot suddenly kicked out. Whoosh. One after another, shocking light green slashes. Like a violent storm, the bombardment struck Brook. Not only him, but also Dr. Hogbagu, who had just rushed up, could not help but change their color in horror and dodge in embarrassment. Boom. Boom. Loud noises continued. Smoke and dust billowed. The earth was blasted into a mess. Brook is a little better. After William's guidance and training, both his swordsmanship and overall quality have been greatly improved, but he is just a little embarrassed. Moreover, he was specially manipulated by William to strengthen Wapple with the power of Munch Munch fruit. His bones are comparable to morphological memory alloys, and ordinary swords and guns cannot hurt him at all. And Hogba Gu, who was slightly less powerful, was in ragged clothes and grinning. There were many wounds on the body. Wah wah, woo. There was a flash of electricity. Wappa's body is like electricity. He appeared behind William in an instant, however, there is no time to take action yet. William seemed to predict the future, his body was like lightning, and his reactions were extremely quick. Finger pistol. The slender right index finger wrapped around armament hockey, tearing the atmosphere apart like lightning, and the hole shot out. At the same time, William's eyes narrowed and his head suddenly turned to one side. Once again, he dodged several rounds of invisible bullets that suddenly struck him. Wah wah. Lightning flashed. Wappa's hair stood on end. His whole body turned into lightning and he retreated violently, barely escaping the brutal attack. At the same time, not to be outdone, they launched a fierce offensive. Lightning kick. The lightning is dazzling, eye-catching kick. With the speed of lightning and carrying astonishing power, it came through the air. It's so dazzling that you can't react at all. Boom. With the powerful observation hockey prediction, not to be outdone, William wrapped his arms around Hockey's right foot and charged forward. Instead of being strong and strong, the exaggerated power made Wappa change his color in shock. In an instant, it turned into a dazzling electric light. Shoot out. Boom, the strong electric light disappeared in a flash. The ground in the distance collapsed and smoke filled the air. With the help of electronic technology, the exaggerated impact was removed, and Wappa's whole person flashed out. Advertisement, brush. The next moment, William suddenly dodged. While dodging several invisible bullets, the innate observation hockey directly locked onto Vanoka's aura. Although the ability of the transparent fruit is indeed very powerful, even an ordinary strong person with observation hockey cannot easily lock on Vanoka, who deliberately distanced himself and kept moving quickly. But William is an awakened person who is born with observation. Observation hockey can easily cover an island, and even any changes in the aura on it cannot escape his induction, completely restraining Vanoka's invisibility ability. Fly finger pistol. With a flick of his fingers, several air blades shot out of the air. He shot towards the direction where Vanoka was invisible. Negative ghost. A large number of negative ghosts came over one after another. Perona controlled them from a distance and pursued William relentlessly. Revolutionary dance assault attack. At the same time, a cold light flashed. Brook stepped hard, drew his sword and swung at extremely fast speed. Shaving flash. Brook's vision blurred, and an afterimage passed in front of him. William was incredibly fast and not only dodged those annoying negative ghosts, and he easily dodged his slashing attack. Tempest kick chaos. In an instant, William, who had distanced himself, launched a fierce counterattack. His legs kept tearing apart the air and kicked out violently. Whoosh. One slash after another came out in succession. Brook and Perona were shocked. Boom boom. Wah wah. At this time, lightning flashed. The disgraced Wappa rushed out from the ruins. The whole body was flashing with astonishing electric light, which made people feel frightened. What a terrifying power. The right foot that had fought with William before was trembling unnaturally. Before William could rush up to him, he already launched an attack again without hesitation. 60 million volts Brontosaurus. Roar. The electric light flickers. A giant Brontosaurus comes to life. Baring his teeth and claws, he roared towards William. It blasted over. Haha. Tempest kick Landon. Squint your eyes. William's expression remained unchanged. With one step of his foot, he advanced instead of retreating and rushed out. His right foot instantly tore through the atmosphere and kicked out a dazzling slash. Wah. The huge and dazzling slash was so sharp that it shot through the air in an instant. He collided hard with the thunder dragon that suddenly attacked. Boom boom. Paw, paw. Midair, William is as fast as lightning. Stepping on the atmosphere, running wildly. 100 million volts. Wappa's eyes flashed, and he was about to attack with all his strength. Death Razor, however, in an instant, an extremely sharp trajectory streaked through the air. Wappa's pupils shrank sharply and his hair stood on end. But it was too late to dodge. Kai. I felt a blur in front of my eyes, and before I had time to react, the head was already separated. With wisps of electric light. Hiss. Wappa was dripping with cold sweat and couldn't help but gasp. If William had used hockey just now, his body was really separated and his head fell to the ground. Chapter 44. The Shadow of Split, Ancient Giants, Modified Version. Brush. A spacious training ground. William did not stop his offensive. In an instant, a sharp trajectory streaked through the air and disappeared in a flash. Brook, who had just been blasted away and was about to rush forward, suddenly felt his hair stand on end. What? He was blocking with his sword. Sparks sputter. The sound of gold and iron clashing was a bit harsh. But Brook, who could barely block the fatal blow, had no time to breathe a sigh of relief. Brush. A sharp kick swept across. Even though his bones had been strengthened with morphological memory alloy, there was still a burning pain that made him gasp. The next moment, the whole person was flying out like a cannonball. Death Razor. Midair, comes with a sharp trajectory. Black afterimages kept passing by the training ground. The speed William showed was as fast as a ghost. After more than 3 months of continuous training and hard work, his strength has obviously improved to a higher level. On the basis of the original 6 moves, it was once again innovated and combined with shaving and moonwalk to create an extended technique, Death Razor, which is jaw-droppingly fast. Everywhere you go, all obstacles were ruthlessly torn apart and cut open. It is as fast as a ghost and out of reach, causing the target to be torn apart before he can react. Bang! Bang! In the blink of an eye, whether it's Dr. Hogbajiu, Van Oka hiding in the dark, or Perona himself. One after another, they were hit hard, each one screamed. Flying out. Wah wah. There was a flash of lightning. Wappa's whole body recovered as before, unscathed. But he raised his hand and resigned helplessly, as expected of Lord William. We lost, Lord William. Damn it, I lost so miserably, get up in embarrassment. Perona, who was bruised and swollen, was full of unwillingness. Oh ho ho ho, Master William is really getting more and more powerful. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed Brook, I felt inexplicable. Advertisement because the skeleton was modified by Munch Munch fruit with morphological memory alloy. It can be said to be indestructible and invulnerable, so there is no serious problem at all. It hurts me to death. The embarrassed Hogbagu bared his teeth and said, no match for you at all. My ability has been completely seen through by Sir William. There was a shocking bloody hole on his shoulder. Fan Oka, who was slightly injured after being hit by William's flying finger pistol, was full of helplessness while carrying his beloved gun Qianlu. His transparent fruit ability was completely seen through by William. There is no threat at all in front of the other party. They are making continuous progress these days, but this adult also did not stand still and made faster progress. Without even using his abilities, he could easily crush them all with his physical skills alone. Even in the case of direct and large-scale water release. If I can be threatened by you so easily, wouldn't I be a failure as a boss? William chuckled. After speaking, he clapped his hands. Okay, that's it for today. Come with me to the ice house, and let me open your eyes. After so long delay, the legendary Demon Oz really should be resurrected. William directly announced the big news. Get ready to resurrect the most powerful zombie, Magic Oz. Majin Oz? Lord William, are you finally ready to resurrect it? Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss, the strongest zombie? That's really awesome. Hearing this, Perona, Van Oka, Hogbajiu and others all couldn't help but shine with expectation. Sir William, have you found a suitable shadow? Brooke was a little confused. Didn't this adult say that ordinary shadows are not worthy of this strongest zombie, so do you still have to wait? No, no need. There is a better choice. William's mouth curled up. He walked straight towards the castle. Huh? Hearing William say this. Perona and others were confused, but seeing that William had no intention of saying more, they could only follow quickly. Clang, not long after. In the huge ice storage, the heavy door opened. The group followed William here with confusion and expectation. All around, coffins were displayed in order. Advertisement. But the most eye-catching thing was, a huge body with a red body just sat there. After Dr. Haguba's unremitting and perfect restoration, the body of the Demon Oz was completely lifelike without any decay. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss, is it finally going to be resurrected? Although it was unclear what William was going to do next, Dr. Haguba was still full of excitement. Every time I see it, I feel so shocked. Looking up at the extremely tall and visually impactful behemoth in front of him, Wappa was full of emotion. I remember that a few days ago, when he first saw the body of the Demon Oz, he was shocked. Unexpectedly, there are such huge humanoid creatures in the world. It's incredible. I'm really looking forward to it. Perona, Brooke, Van Oka and others couldn't help but look at it with burning eyes. Shadow split. William walked forward slowly, his eyes suddenly stern. Under the gaze of everyone, the shadow under his feet suddenly struggled and trembled. Swish. The next moment, it split apart at a speed visible to the naked eye. Weirdly turned into 2 human-shaped shadows, each one has hands and feet. Exactly the same. Swish, swish, the next moment. 2 identical shadow mages, directly stood up. What is this? Staring at this scene blankly, Wappa, Brooke, Van Oka and others all couldn't help but shrink their eyes. The second shadow clone? Perona was full of surprise. They all saw how powerful William's shadow master was. If he could control 2 shadow masters to fight, you can imagine how amazing it would be. However, what does this have to do with creating the strongest zombie? Could it be? Lord William, you succeeded? Thinking of something. Hagabagu was full of shock and cried out. He naturally knew that compared to plundering the shadows of those strong men, creating a more powerful zombie. In fact, this Lord William has always wanted to use his own shadow to create the strongest zombie. He has been trying and trying, but he has not succeeded. But I didn't expect that the other party did it so quickly. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde, worthy of Lord William. For a moment, Hagabagu was full of excitement. How powerful is the zombie created with William's own shadow? He has already seen it a long time ago. Well, I can barely split my shadow. William nodded. As Van Oka and others watched intently, he pressed his right hand directly on the forehead of the new Shadow Mage, and pressed it against the huge body of Demon Oz. In my name, I grant you a new life, and independent personality, and make you my clone. A strange red light flashed in his eyes, and William directly activated the power of the shadow fruit and made a contract there. You will offer all your loyalty, serve until death, and never betray. The next moment, the shadow mage, who did not move at all, sank into the body of Demon Oz. As my most loyal servant, revive with the strongest attitude, Zombie King. Demon Oz. Chapter 45, King of Zombies, Demon Oz, Modified Version. Dong, dong, dong. The roar like a drum kept echoing. In the huge ice house, the stiff and huge body of Demon Oz gradually began to revive, and his powerful heart was beating there. The exaggerated heartbeat makes people feel a little frightened. Gulu. This depressing breath. Advertisement, is he finally going to be resurrected? The legendary demon. I heard that it often moved its favorite islands or countries away during its lifetime, and was called the Lucky Country, Oz. The eyes of Brook, Perona, Hogba Gu and others were blazing, full of unspeakable expectations. What kind of power does the legendary Yunguo Oz have? Brush. The huge fingers began to move. Demon Oz suddenly opened his eyes. Eyeballs covered with horrifying bloodshot eyes stared at Wappa, Perona, Brook and others in front of them. The palpitating aura made them all feel numb. From today on, you are the Zombie King who rules all zombies, Demon Oz. William folded his arms and spoke calmly. I am the Zombie King. Imagine Oz, a blank stare. Gradually become clearer, looking at William's tiny figure in front of him. The exaggerated body of Demon Oz suddenly moved. Bang. Bang! The huge ice house roared because of its actions. It made me break into a cold sweat. We have to worry about whether this castle is strong enough. Master. Oz's voice was like a bell, and with his ridiculously huge body, he knelt on one knee. He lowered his huge head towards William, his master. Full of piety. From now on, call me Sir William, William said directly. Unlike other zombies, Oz is the strongest zombie created from his own split shadow. It is the most advanced and perfect zombie, equivalent to his own clone, with an independent personality. Not only has he perfectly inherited his fighting instinct, but he also has excellent wisdom and learning ability, and can continue to grow. Although the strength of this body has basically locked its upper limit, there is still a lot of room for improvement in general, especially in terms of hockey and combat skills. In particular, it doesn't have as many weaknesses as other zombies. Yes, Lord William. Bang, bang, not long. The earth rumbled and trembled. A huge figure with a red body, bigger than Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, and unbelievably exaggerated. It's like blocking out the sky and the sun, which is daunting. Take your time and walk out of the huge castle, that is. Gulu, isn't that the legendary demon, Oz the Luck Country? Advertisement, has it been resurrected by Lord William? Countless zombie soldiers, including Wang Lun, John, Silver Axe and other zombie generals, were shocked. Looking at the demon Oz who was truly resurrected by William and walked out of the cold storage of the terrifying ship as the strongest zombie king. The strong visual impact shocked them beyond words. Some sweat broke out. Boom, that afternoon. The terrifying ship docked at an uninhabited island. The island trembled and smoke billowed. The huge body of the demon Oz left the terrifying ship and set foot on the uninhabited island. It caused countless birds and beasts to panic, running around. Let me see your power, Oz. William brought Wappa, Brook, Perona, Vanoka and others to the coast of the terror ship. But he had no intention of landing on the island. The shadow mage stood up directly and spread out a pair of shadow wings. Suddenly they flew over to an uninhabited island. Bring it on. Good. Majin Oz is unattainable. Looking down at the tiny shadow mage, his eyes became sharp. The next moment, shave, it stamped its feet. It disappeared in an instant. Showing extremely terrifying speed, suddenly appeared in the sky above the shadow mage. The exaggerated right leg is like a huge sword and axe. No, it should be said to be like a giant war hammer. Violently rubbing against the atmosphere, blow down brazenly. Boom. The ground shook and the loud noise shook the sky. Debris flew and smoke billowed. The entire island seemed to be shaking. The ground with a radius of 300 to 400 meters collapsed directly, showing huge cracks like spider webs. Woo-hoo-hoo. Crash. The fierce wind pressure swept away countless sand and stones, rolling away. One after another, the towering trees were crushed and swaying, wailing endlessly. The sea surface even set off huge waves, makes you sweat. This is sixth style, so fast, I can't see clearly at all. Gulu. What a power this is. Advertisement, how can such a huge body possess such exaggerated speed? This horrific scene. Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu and others could not help but widen their eyes and were all stunned. I just feel my scalp is numb, if it were them instead. I'm afraid I'll be turned into a pulp, Pu Ling Ling. A large number of pitch-black bats kept flying. There they gathered together into a human-shaped black shadow. Shadow Giant. The shadow mage suddenly swelled up. It turned into a shadow giant about 20 meters tall, although its size was not as big as that of Demon Oz. But no less than the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The flexible and retractable greedy snake. The exaggeratedly large black shadow fist print, which was as big as a giant clan, was constantly tearing apart the atmosphere. Moreover, directly blessing armament hockey, it becomes dark and shiny. Crazy blast towards the huge Demon Oz. Boom, boom. Demon Oz can't dodge, he was hit continuously and his body kept falling backwards. The ground cracked under his feet, smoke and dust billowed. Hey, it doesn't hurt or itch, it has horns on its head and a hideous face. It looks a little awkward, but it's not serious at all. The Shadow Giant's fist seal is no less than that of a real giant warrior, and can be said to be extremely huge. Although it is not as weak as a baby's fist, it cannot pose much of a threat at all. In particular, it is a zombie itself and cannot feel pain at all. Look at my flexible snake. Looking at the Shadow Mage who was hundreds of meters away, Oz bared his teeth and smiled. Immediately afterwards, in the shocked eyes of Wappa, Perona, Vanoka, and Hogba Gu, it brazenly raised its exaggerated fist and waved it wildly. Moreover, the fist turned as black as ink, straight around armament hockey. Between the electric light and flint. The atmosphere is constantly being rubbed. The ridiculously large fist prints were densely packed and dazzling. What's even more exaggerated is that Oz's arms, which were already 30 or 40 meters long, actually stretched out again. Continuously bombarded the Shadow Giant. Boom, boom. There is no suspense. A Shadow Giant about 20 meters tall. It was directly crushed by the exaggerated power and blasted to pieces. It turned into countless, black mud, and splashed out. Chapter 46 Little Garden, Fighting Giants, Revised Version. Hiss, too strong. What a power, hiss, 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 this is the Zombie King. On the Ship of Terror. Advertisement witnessing the battle between the Shadow Giant and the Demon Oz. Wappa, Brook, Vanoka, Hogba Gu and others were all shocked. Perona couldn't help but gasped and looked at William in disbelief. Sir William, can Oz not only use hockey, but also the ability of the Shadow Fruit? After I gave it an independent personality and completely integrated into the body of Majin Oz and became a zombie, it has certain restrictions. It cannot use other Shadow Fruit abilities and can only change its own shadow. Gazing at the overwhelming terrifying power displayed on the uninhabited island and easily suppressing the Shadow Mage's Demon Oz, William said nonchalantly. In other words, it can only assist in the battle through the Shadow Revolution. The current Demon Oz is equivalent to a telescopic fruit user. Of course, this is just to test the fighting power of Oz the Demon. After all, with William as an ability user and full of physical strength, the Shadow Mage as a clone has the same combat power as the original body. There is no real action. After all, the ability of the Shadow Fruit is not just for show. Just in time, we will soon be able to fully verify Oz's true fighting power. William couldn't help but chuckle as he thought of his next destination. His eyes were full of expectation. He used the split shadow to create the strongest zombie. Will he be weaker than the two former leaders of the world-famous giant pirates? Listen. From today on, Oz is your king, all zombie soldiers and zombie generals must obey his orders. William's irresistible voice echoed in the ears of every zombie. Yes, Lord William, Oz-sama, one zombie soldier shouted. Even those arrogant zombie generals lowered their heads. Without him, the gap is too big, there is no thought of challenging at all. Lord William, the uninhabited island has arrived. 2 days later, on the vast and endless sea, the Ship of Terror moved forward slowly there. An island with dense vegetation is visible in the distance. Great. Is it finally here? Perona, who was sweating profusely from training, jumped up excitedly. I couldn't wait to look at the islands in the distance. Hiss tilde hiss tilde hiss tilde. Lord William, are there really giants on this island? Hogbagu's eyes were shining with expectation. They all already knew the reason why William came to the uninhabited island. Here, there are 2 giant warriors. Advertisement. It is said that he is also the former leader of the giant soldier pirates. 180 years ago, a bounty of 100 million belly was placed on his head by the world government. The strength is unbelievable. It is an excellent material for zombies. Of course, my information will not be wrong, William said calmly. Yo ho ho ho, apart from Oz, the even bigger ancient giant, I have never seen a real giant. Brooke said. He was born in a certain kingdom in West Blue. Although there are also giant countries in that sea area. But those giants were relatively exclusive and rarely interacted with humans. He had never seen the giants before. But obviously, relatively speaking, the appearance of the giants is closer to humans. Majin Oz is more like a giant monster in human form. See, it's really big and intimidating. Vanoka jumped to a high place and looked at the islands in the distance. With the high-power sniper scope of his right eye, he saw the giant on the island, and he was filled with emotion. Since he is the leader of the giant pirates, he must be very strong, right? Wappa, who was holding exaggerated dumbbells and squatting up and down, sweating profusely, subconsciously looked over. Boom. Boom. At this time, on the island, there were sudden roars. Volcanoes erupted, billowing smoke. It was as if a battle horn had been sounded. Bang, bang. Not long after, in the shocked and incomprehensible eyes of Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu and others. Accompanied by huge shouts, two huge giants ran out from both ends of the island. Holding exaggerated weapons and shields, he is full of fighting spirit. Fighting together. Clang. Clang. Boom. Boom. On an uninhabited island, swords and axes collided and sparks flew out. There were constant loud noises and the whole island was shaking. Two huge figures wearing helmets and armor were fighting there. Woohoo. Wow. In the fierce confrontation of the fierce confrontation, the amazing wind pressure has been pushed over countless big trees, and the sea is even more turbulent. The strength displayed by the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates is truly shocking. Countless birds flew away in panic, and a large number of prehistoric creatures that should have disappeared over the years were running around there. Even from an extremely long distance, you can feel the exaggerated collision of forces. It's heart-stopping. Scalp numbness. A fight started? How is this going? Advertisement on the sea near an uninhabited island. The slowly approaching ship of terror is getting closer and closer. Looking at the exaggerated size of the island, the two giants suddenly started a desperate duel and kept fighting. Perona, Brook, Hogba Gu and others were all confused. Some were stunned. No need to be surprised. William was not surprised. Looking at the two giants who were fighting on the uninhabited island, he said lightly, for some reasons, they have been fighting here for almost 100 years. Only the real winner can return with glory. Elbaf, become the sole leader of the giant pirates. But the two have similar strength. Even if they fight countless times, it's still hard to tell the winner. This is also the reason why the giant pirates, which was at its peak back then, suddenly disbanded. The giants are not like humans. Most of them are one-dimensional guys with very stubborn personalities. It seems ridiculous to us, but they are willing to sacrifice everything, risk their glory, risk their lives, and follow through to the end. Leave aside everything else. These giants have the determination and will to carry out their beliefs to the end. Still quite admirable. Is this the giant race? It's really incredible. Wappa was amazed as he stared at the battle between the two giants. The strength displayed by the two giants was truly astonishing. Put aside the recently acquired Logia Thunder Fruit ability. If he went up, he would probably be smashed into pieces by a giant with an exaggerated size and immense strength. He would not be qualified to challenge head-on. Blue Ogre Dory, Red Ogre Brogy. They are right, the former leaders of the giant soldier pirates. Van Oka flipped through the collected bounty lists. Comparing the appearance of the two giants, the identities of the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates were confirmed. Then Lord William, it's better to wait until they both lose, and then, Haguba said with a weird smile. Although the strategy you mentioned is feasible and the best choice, I am not prepared to do that. William stared closely at the fighting Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. There was a fiery fighting spirit in his eyes, and he was unprecedentedly proud. He knew very well how powerful the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates were. Once they really worked together and joined forces to fight against the enemy, I am afraid that the pirate emperors in New World who are as strong as monsters may not be able to easily defeat them in a short time. 1 + 1 can be said to be far greater than 2. However, even though it was clear that the two of them were very strong. But William was still determined to use Blue Ogre and Red Ogre as his whetstone. Although there are conspiracies and tricks, he does not reject them. But it doesn't have to be used at all times, if every time you encounter a decent and strong enemy. I just want to play some conspiracy and use any means. Sooner or later, he was immersed in it, and unconsciously, he lost his indomitable spirit. And if you want to become a truly strong person, just hiding and practicing behind closed doors is not enough. Only by constantly fighting and killing those strong people and tempering between life and death, can people grow the fastest. Of course, he wants to challenge the strong, not seek death. In a one-on-one challenge, William is still very confident. If you have to go up one-on-one, you're going to die directly. But there is the trump card of Majin Oz, he is very confident. Chapter 47 Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the Arrogant Oz, Modified Version. Keng. Prehistoric Island Center, on a green plain. The two giants' swords collided and gave them a hard blow. Yuahuhu. The powerful wind kept raging, making it difficult to open one's eyes. The two of them seemed to feel something and separated. They all looked at the sea in the distance, because they all felt the unusual aura. Gaga. Watching the huge island ship coming slowly on the sea. The huge Blue Ogre Dory, who had a long beard and was holding a long sword and a buckler, bared his teeth and smiled. It looks like we have a guest. Kabababa. Then the duel between us will come to an end today. Red Ogre Brogy on the opposite side couldn't help grinning. He was huge, somewhat bloated, with exaggerated nostrils and a big yellow beard. Looking at the huge island ship, I was a little surprised. It's so huge, is it a ship transformed from an island? This is the first time I've seen it. Wait, is that Ancient Giant Clan? Suddenly, Blue Ogre Dory's pupils shrank sharply. I noticed the figure on the terrifying ship that was far more exaggerated than the giants. Tisk tisk, there really is a big guy here, carrying a giant axe. Red Ogre Brogy bared his teeth and laughed. Hey, Brogy, does that guy look familiar to you? Something came to mind. Blue Ogre Dory was full of surprise, turned his head and said to Red Ogre Brogy. Why does it feel like he looks a bit like a guy we saw before? Kabababa, I also remembered it, Dory. Red Ogre Brogy laughed and said, that guy is probably also a descendant of the devil, right? Gaga 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 tilde, the big villain who liked to luck the country 500 years ago. Lord William, is he finally going to do something big? At the same time, the ship of terror is getting closer and closer, ready to dock. The ground rumbled and Demon Oz walked over with heavy steps. That huge figure was intimidating. Gulu. Advertisement. Lord Oz. Each zombie soldier, and even the zombie generals, all moved out of the way. It seems that those two guys have discovered us and stopped fighting, looking at the two giant figures on the prehistoric island looking over here. That face that was so fierce that it could make a baby stop crying was full of excitement. Do you want to go directly, Lord William? It bared its teeth there, with high fighting spirit and eagerness to try. As William split shadow, he created a zombie clone. It obviously inherited William's warlike character and was fearless in the face of any enemy. But I don't know if he was affected by the body of Demon Oz, but he was actually much more arrogant than William himself. On weekdays, no one except William, the master, would obey. Even Brooke, Van Oka, Hogba Gu and others were not taken seriously by him. Then come over and say hello to me, William laughed. The blood in his body has gradually begun to boil. Only by constantly fighting against the strong can one make progress faster. The whole person jumped suddenly, spreading the shadow wings behind him, and soared into the sky. It fell directly on the head of Majin Oz. Yes, there is nothing more interesting than fighting. Oz's terrifying eyes were full of excitement. It beat its chest, made a sound like a drum, and blew up a fierce hurricane. Bang! He couldn't wait and pressed his feet, under the watchful eyes of Perona, Van Oka, Hogba Gu and others. The huge figure jumped up high. All of a sudden, it spanned a distance of more than several hundred meters. Arriving on the coast of prehistoric island, boom! There was a loud bang. The earth roared. The whole island seemed to tremble violently. The ground collapsed, rocks flew, and smoke billowed. The sea surface even set off huge waves, boiling. Are you here? It's really big enough, Kabababa, there's a human on its head? Advertisement. The ground shook, as Demon Oz continues to approach. Noticing the impossibly young figure on top of the behemoth in front of them, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre were both a little surprised. Ga tilde, I haven't looked up to others like this for a long time. Blue Ogre Dory raised his head, looking at the exaggeratedly large and astonishingly powerful Demon Oz, and the negligible, tiny, figure above him. Especially that strong human being, although he was too young, the aura he exuded was one that could not be underestimated. I'm very sorry for disturbing you by coming uninvited, William said with a smile on top of the head of Demon Oz. He looked directly at the two huge figures in front of him, his eyes full of awe-inspiring fighting spirit, and said bluntly, nothing else, I just feel happy to see the hunter. When I see a strong person, I can't help but want to challenge. Oh, Blue Ogre raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. You want to challenge us? That hockey, you are indeed very strong, a strong young human being. Red Ogre Brogy looked at William and recognized his strength. As the former leader of the giant soldier pirates. They are not ordinary giant warriors. Naturally, we can feel the hockey in William that cannot be ignored. Lord William, it's better to be simple and clear to these brainless guys. Looking down at the two giant warriors Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Demon Oz bared his teeth, raised his fist impatiently, and said with a ferocious smile, in other words, we want to beat you two to death, or be beaten to death by you two. The extremely arrogant tone made Blue Ogre and Red Ogre stunned. Immediately, the two giant warriors looked at each other. Laughed loudly. Gaga gaga gaga, kabababa, next moment. Two people laughing, exuding a proud fighting spirit. They raised their weapons high. Aiming at the huge Demon Oz in front of him and William above his head, he responded loudly in unison. Betting on the glory of the Elbaf giant warriors, we accept your challenge. Chapter 48 William. It's a matter of life and death. Open black lens bracket first update close black lens bracket. Hey, let's get started, with Blue Ogre Dory and Red Ogre Brogy taking on the challenge. Before William, who was above him, could speak, Oz, who had already been impatient, grinned ferociously and stamped his feet. The huge body shows an exaggerated speed that is completely inconsistent with the size. In an instant, it turned into an afterimage and rushed out like lightning. What a speed! This scene. The pupils of the two giant warriors Dory and Brogy shrank sharply. Some were shocked. I never expected that Oz, a big man, could be so fast. We had to be prepared. In the blink of an eye. Oz has already rushed in front of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The huge fist mark was dark and shiny, entangled with armament hockey, and struck the two of them like a violent storm. An astonishing wind pressure arose, sun shield. Two shields, wrapped around hockey, firmly standing in front of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Bang! Bang! Loud noises continued, extremely exaggerated power impact. Let Blue Ogre and Red Ogre keep retreating. Bang! Bang! The ground rumbled, cracking as it was stepped on. Powerful airwaves kept sweeping across. The sea is boiling. Brogy. Dory. Next moment, life and death duels have been going on for nearly 100 years. But the two giant warriors looked at each other with a perfect understanding of each other. Not to be outdone, they launched a counterattack. The shield in his hand suddenly struck out. Block. A violent impact. Oz was taken by surprise. The huge body was directly thrown away. Bang. Bang. The huge soles of his feet hit the ground hard. He fell back continuously and almost fell. Kankin keeps his body steady. Advertisement, gaw, gaw, gaw. It's been a long time since I met a decent opponent. Dory bared his teeth. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. Kabababa, that's exactly what you said. Brogy is no exception. Looking directly at Ozzy, who was forced to exit, and William with his arms folded above his head, he had not been in a hurry to take action before. Do you want to go together, or one-on-one? Blue Ogre bared his teeth. He is not arrogant or arrogant. Instead, he grew up with Brogy. The two practiced together and fought together. They have a tacit understanding with each other and are better at the giant's combined attack technique. Some powerful moves require two people to work together to perform them. If we join forces, the effect of 1 + 1 will definitely be greater than 2. One-on-one, there is no challenge for me. Dark shadows surge. The black shadow wings spread out behind him. William glided down directly from the top of the head of the demon Oz. It's a matter of life and death. You two should go together. Single blue ogre or red ogre. For William, there really isn't much of a threat. At the very least, relying on the strange ability of the shadow fruit that makes people unable to guard against, he is innately invincible. But that wasn't the fight he wanted either. Gaw gaw gaw, Brogy, what do you say? Blue Ogre Dory looked at his friend. Kabababa, it's been a long time since we fought together, Dory. Red Ogre Brogy laughs. The two of them raised their long swords and giant axes, pointing directly at William and Oz. Then we are not welcome. Realizing the two people in front of me, it is indeed a powerful enemy that cannot be underestimated. The two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates had no intention of asking for help. The blood is starting to boil, William chuckled. In the surprised eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the black shadow mage stood up and suddenly swelled. Shadow Giant. A shadow giant about 20 meters high stood there. Its size is no smaller than that of the two giant warriors Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Brush. Followed immediately. William's whole body jumped slightly. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it sank into the shadow giant's body. The various abilities of the shadow fruit tend to be weird and insidious, making them difficult to guard against. Advertisement, but it was rare to face such huge and powerful opponents as Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. He still preferred to punch to the flesh and compete head-on to fully verify his own strength. Come on, let me see the strength of the leader of the giant soldier pirates. William's fighting spirit was high. Although he lost the battle with Moria more than 3 months ago, he gained a lot. Both observation hockey and armament hockey have made great breakthroughs in the life or death situation of fighting at all costs. Relying on the ability of the shadow fruit, I gained some of the more profound memories of the swordsman Ryoma, Captain John, and others, and witnessed the growth and battles of those strong men in the past. Whether it is skills in swordsmanship, taijutsu, hockey, etc., or related experiences, he has benefited a lot. After several months of unremitting hard work and training, it can be said that I have reached a higher level. Compared to before, even if he didn't use any abilities, he could confidently compete with hockey with his physical skills in hockey, who relied on the ability of the shadow fruit to waste his own Gekko Moria. Not to mention, he now has the ability of the shadow fruit. This is also the confidence that William dares to face Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates. If you encounter a slightly stronger opponent, you will hesitate and shrink back. That's not his style. Shave. William showed madness in his eyes and took the lead. The black shadow giant pressed his feet, and at the moment when the ground cracked, his whole body jumped up like lightning. At the same time, the huge soles of the feet suddenly tore through the air and kicked out violently. Tempest kick. Call out, accompanied by fierce wind pressure. An exaggerated huge slash appeared out of thin air. He blasted hard at the Blue Ogre and Red Ogre who were changing color in front of them. Without hesitation, dodge out of the way. Boom boom. The ground roared and smoke billowed. Countless towering ancient trees were cut off ruthlessly. Crashing. Crashing. The sea in the distance was ruthlessly cut open. A huge trench appears there. Shocking. What an incredible guy. This is an exaggerated scene. Blue Ogre Dory's eyes narrowed and he took a breath of air. Then, let's get rid of a flexible snake first. Demon Oz grinned ferociously. It charged straight out, its fists wrapped around hockey. He suddenly swung out towards the Blue Ogre Dory who had just dodged and was closest to him. Swipe. Swipe. Even though he was still hundreds of meters away, his huge arms still stretched straight with the shadow. The dark and exaggerated fist mark was blasted at Red Ogre Brogy, who was shocked and disbelieving. What? Boom boom. Chapter 49 2 vs 2, The Collision of Forces, Second Update. Sun Shield. Bang. Bang. On Prehistoric Island. Accompanied by fierce and unparalleled winds, The violent fist marks were constantly expanding and contracting. Demon Oz is at full strength, bombarding Red Ogre Brogy like crazy. Not prepared to give the other party any chance to breathe at all. Boom. Boom. The huge shield wrapped around Haki, firmly blocking him in front of him. Is this monster still a person with abilities? He's really strong. Brogy gritted his teeth with a stern look in his eyes. The ground beneath his feet cracked and his body kept sliding out. Facing the monster-like power of Majin Oz, even he, the former leader of the giant soldier pirates, was at a disadvantage and struggled. Brogy was secretly shocked. In terms of strength, this was the first time that this giant warrior lost to others. Even the descendant of the demon he met at the beginning was not so exaggerated. Although the demon was very big, he was smaller in size and might not be able to surpass himself in strength. But the monster from the ancient giant race in front of him was completely different. And he is actually a person with abilities and can continuously extend his arms. Greatly enhance attack power and distance, Brogy. Not far away, Dory saw this. The huge body jumped suddenly. The sharp giant sword struck Demon Oz hard. Kang. Sparks sputter. Astonishing energy swept across. Woohoo! Countless sand and stones were carried by the airwaves and surged in all directions. In a split second, Blue Ogre only felt a blur in front of his eyes. A huge black shadow, holding a pitch-black sword, rushed towards them. They stood firmly in front of him and immediately launched a fierce offensive. Clang! Clang! The sound of gold and iron clashing is endless. Continuously swinging his sword to block, feeling the exaggerated strength, Blue Ogre did not dare to be careless. Tisk, tisk, it's really intense, on the distant sea. There lies the huge ship of terror. Wappa, Perona, Brook, Vanoka and others are watching the battle from a distance. Advertisement looking at the battle between those huge figures, everyone couldn't help but be a little shocked. Incredible. Hogba Gu was amazed. That giant actually blocked Oz's attack. The size is completely different. It stands to reason that it is impossible to block it, Fan Oka nodded. After all, he is the former leader of the giant soldier pirates. With such strength, it is not surprising. Wappa was non-committal. His eyes were full of fire, full of yearning for such power. After all, how could a strong man who was so valued by Sir William not have two brushes? Boom. At this time, on Prehistoric Island, the round shield was suddenly raised. Danger after danger, he blocked the sharp blade coming from a tricky angle. Kai, Blue Ogre, who was experienced in combat, waved his sword brazenly and struck at the head of the shadow giant. But William also reacted quickly and controlled the shadow giant. He dodged Blue Ogre's attack in an instant. Shave, that's when Majin Oz stopped punching, but the suppressed Red Ogre Brogy had not yet been able to take a breath. A huge black shadow flashed above, and a loud roar broke through the air. Rocket Seal. A figure that covered the sky and the sun descended from the sky. The huge feet wrapped around Haki and stretched suddenly. With the force of thunder, it hit hard. This guy. The hair on Brogy's body stood up and his color changed in shock. Without hesitation, he stormed out. Boom boom. The loud noise shook the sky. The whole island was shaken. Rocks flew and smoke billowed. Countless birds and beasts were running around in panic. The land with a radius of more than 400 to 500 meters collapsed like a spiderweb, and groundwater gurgled directly. He was trampled to pieces by Oz's exaggerated blow. It makes people burst into cold sweat. What an incredible guy. And Brogy's huge figure rushed out of the billowing smoke and dust. Advertisement, who, accompanied by a hurricane. A huge and dark fist mark struck hard again. What? Brogy's expression changed, and he raised his shield in a flash, narrowly blocking Oz's relentless and murderous attack. But he was still overwhelmed by the exaggerated power and flew backwards. Bang! The earth collapsed. Brogy fell to the ground in a panic. At the same time, Blue Ogre Dory struggled to push back the shadow giant in front of him. Came to his side. Brgy, are you okay? Kabababa, it looks like I really underestimate you. A somewhat embarrassed Brogy stood up laughing. Gaw, indeed, we can't do it without joining forces. Blue Ogre Dory is laughing too. Staring directly at the large and small Demon Oz and the shadow giant, who gave people unlimited pressure. Their eyes were awe-inspiring, and they both raised their weapons, then let them see the strength of the Elbaf warriors. The momentum of the two people became fierce. Oz. Between the eyebrows of the shadow giant, William appeared there with his arms folded and staring at the two giant warriors in front of him. Hey, got it. A zombie created as a shadow clone of William himself. Although they are independent living beings, Oz and William still have an inseparable connection. Even though it was their first time fighting together, they still had a better understanding than the pairing of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The flexible snake, in an instant, two figures, one big and one small. They both waved their fists, wrapping around Haki's fist seal, and blasted wildly at the Blue Ogre and Red Ogre in front of them. Huh. The sound broke through the air constantly. The atmosphere is constantly being violently rubbed. Yuahuhu. The violent wind pressure kept raging. It's impossible to open your eyes. Block, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, two people. Not only did he not flinch, but he held a shield and wrapped around the tyrannical Haki. Accumulating exaggerated power, they all collided together. Boom boom. Chapter 50 Defeat? Gun of Elbaf? Open black lens bracket. Third update. Close black lens bracket. Clang. Clang. Bang. Boom, on prehistoric island. As time continues to pass, among the several huge figures, the exaggerated and shocking battle continued. Moreover, it gradually became white-hot and more intense. Under the pressure of two powerful men, William and Demon Oz. Even Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates, could not get any benefits, but were faintly suppressed. The two giant warriors, who had been fighting for nearly 100 years, had to put aside their past grudges, start to get serious, and join forces to fight back. Itoryu Phylong, the shadow giant, is under the control of William. Demonstrated the Shimotsuki-style swordsmanship of the swordsman Ryoma. Wah! A huge slash turned into a flying dragon with fangs and claws. He pounced hard on the Blue Ogre in front of him. Tempest Kick Lan Duan, Majin Oz is not to be outdone. With a press of his foot, he leapt high into the air with an exaggerated figure, and his huge right foot swept out like electricity. Solar Shield. Boom boom. The loud noise shook the sky. Smoke and dust billowed, however, at this moment. William and Oz, who had the upper hand, didn't wait for them to kill each other. Don't underestimate Elbaf's warriors. Dory, give them some color. Not to be outdone, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre directly launched a fierce counterattack. The huge sword and battle axe wrapped around Haki, shining with cold light. The Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, which had been charged for a long time, both rushed out. He struck hard at the shadow giant who bore the brunt. Sun saw. One from the left and one from the right, coming from a flanking attack. Sharp and cunning, murderous. The air was faintly distorted. Shaving flash. Sheila, although William Observation Haki had already predicted it. Without hesitation, he gave up the hard attack and immediately controlled the shadow giant to retreat violently. But it was still a step too late, faced with Blue Ogre and Red Ogre's long-awaited and powerful kills. The giant sword that was formed by the black shadow and wrapped around Haki was mercilessly chopped off. The shadow giant's abdomen was cut in half, split into two. It can be said to be shocking. Boom. Boom. The next moment. Don't wait for Blue Ogre and Red Ogre to be happy. Advertisement: the shadow giant that was torn into two pieces looked like a normal person. Two huge fist marks were swung out wildly. The two of them were directly blasted away. Bang bang. Two huge figures flew out upside down. The ground rumbled and trembled when he stepped on it, and he barely stabilized his figure. Bang. Bang. The embarrassed Blue Ogre and Red Ogre had blood bleeding from the corners of their mouths. The shield tied to his arm could barely block the relentless and continuous punch marks that followed. Watching the two bodies of the black shadow giant come together again at a speed visible to the naked eye. They thought they could destroy the difficult shadow giant, but they were a little shocked. Sure enough, controlling the shadow giant is ultimately inferior to oneself. Looking at the shadow giant that was cut in two and recovered again, William shook his head helplessly. If he enlarges his body, with his super high nerve reaction ability, he could completely avoid the blow just now. If your skills stop here, then the battle is almost over. William looked directly at Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The next moment, he separated directly from the shadow giant. Suddenly jumped up high. Shadow Revolution gigantic. Swipe. In an instant, in the shrinking eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. As the shadow continued to enlarge, William's entire body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a giant about 20 meters tall, almost the same as Blue Ogre and other giants. The muscles all over his body were tense and veins popped out. There were wisps of hot steam coming out. The momentum is terrifying. Bipolar, telescopic King Cobra, William's eyes were stern. He directly launched a fierce attack with the shadow giant transformed by the shadow mage. His hands, which had become as black as ink, suddenly clenched into fists. It's as if it was poured from molten iron, shining brightly. Pumping his fist brazenly. Ha! Ha! In the changing eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The fist marks all over the sky were like a violent storm, bombarding them crazily. Boom boom. Kankin held up his shield to block. But in the next moment, something happened that shocked them even more. Each one continues to extend, and the punch marks that come violently turn at incredible angles. Blast towards the blind corner. Bang. Bang. Ah. Row is Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. For a moment, he was caught off guard and could not completely prevent the intensive and ruthless attack. He was knocked back repeatedly, blue nose and swollen face. Blood splattered. That's it, advertisement at the same time. Demon Oz grinned ferociously. He rushed forward without giving up, in the eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre whose colors changed with horror. Invincible rocket launcher. Two ridiculously big palms came together and wrapped around Haki, who was not weak at all. They stretched backwards, accumulating powerful potential energy. In an instant, the atmosphere was completely overwhelmed. It covered Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, who were unable to dodge and could only block with all their might. It hit hard. Solar shield. Boom boom. The loud noise shook the sky. The exaggerated power collides there. The earth was directly torn apart, and the violent airwaves rippled layer by layer. It makes it impossible to open your eyes and look straight. Bang! Bang! There was no surprise. Two huge figures flew out like cannonballs. Towering trees were directly knocked down from their waists. It dragged long scratches on the ground. Huge trenches were left. Extremely exaggerated. Hey, the former leader of the giant soldier pirates should be considered the strongest warrior in Elbaf, right? Demon Oz bared his fangs. It's nothing special. Idiot, don't be careless. They still have reservations and are not serious about it. William, who had grown in size, said in a deep voice with a hoarse voice. Although the strength of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre is roughly clear. It doesn't seem to be as powerful as I expected, but he doesn't look down on them too much. Gaga gaga gaga. Kabababa. Sudden, a burst of laughter came from the ruins in the distance. I haven't been hurt this badly in a while, Brogy. That's right, Dory, two huge figures covered in blood and in a miserable state. He slowly crawled out of the ruins, staggering a little, and his extremely heavy footsteps made the ground roar. But it began to exude an aura that could not be ignored. The glory of Elbaf cannot be shamed because of us. Blue Ogre Dory, whose face was covered in blood, was holding a long sword and looking directly at William and Oz in front of him. Then let them witness the spear that our Elbaf giants are proud of. Brogy, who was bruised and swollen, held up the giant axe and bared his teeth in a smile, saying. Both men raised their weapons. The terrifying momentum keeps rising. Let's learn from it. Our Elbaf's strongest combat skill. Swinging the long sword diagonally, Blue Ogre looked majestic. He grinned at William and said, the young strong man, and the monster from the ancient giant race. Don't die easily.